as a means to communicate with the main referee, and that poses an obstacle. That means you need to work out these details with them beforehand. Absolutely. But yeah, it's true. When does a goal ref call a timeout? I don't know. It's never happened to me.
Yeah, I was just going to say the problem here is that in reality, like the goal ref is going to be, or the line ref is, if you have some, they're kind of hard to think. So I see an issue there having a too complicated code system.
This is why most of the time when a referee sees that his line ref is called a foul or has a decisive action, that you come off of your podium and you go discuss with them with time stopped.
We talked too about when you see something, you want to give an advantage or signal a foul, but you miss the eye contact. And sometimes you're just too long to react and the play is going on the other way. If you make your move, but your main ref doesn't see you, just let it go after 20 seconds. Because if you're like this for 2 minutes, and then your main ref sees you, he doesn't know why he will have to blow and have to whistle and just let it go. It's a foul. Nobody noticed it. Just put your hand down.
Yeah, after a few seconds.
Yeah, after 10 seconds, yeah, when the ball is already on the other side.
And that's don't mean it's dangerous or significant. Don't watch the goal.
Absolutely. Sometimes a referee will understand the goal ref and say, out of their discretion or decisions, like, no, I don't need it. There might be a good kind of visual communication that's just like, don't worry about it. We're going to continue to play. Yeah, it's good. Have that positive. You're absolutely right. Have a positive affirmation that you've understood them, that you saw their gesture, and that you've decided to ignore it. But what's important is that you are communicating with your goal ref. The more often you do it, the more natural it becomes, and the more valuable your goal ref becomes in your arbitration. In fact, it's gotten to the point for me now that I get very quickly frustrated with my goal refs when they're not covering the basics, like declaring the goal valid, making eye contact with me, etc., etc. I will, if I find an opportune time, go over to the line and chew them out and say, listen, dude, I know you're having a great time, but I need you here. I need you really bad. This is terrifying. Let's get to work, right?
Yeah,
so
that's why I have a team ref meeting before the game. You know who's the goal ref. Most of the time, you ask who can go ref, who can go ref. It's not the best way to have a good goal ref.
Yeah, what's your name?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Never seen you before. Don't know who you are, but you're standing in the goal ref zone, so you're my man.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes
just in there.
Yeah.
You can watch
to answer to that and the part that you were saying on the visual or being noticed by the main ref. So sometimes you just make things little and it doesn't see you.
Mm-hmm.
And also to address the fact that maybe goal refs or corner refs are not necessarily in the game. You could have some accessory that kind of impart them, or as soon as you have some accessory that is with you, it kind of comes with the role and the responsibility. So as soon as you have it, it's like you can hold a beer at the same time, or having either some visual high colored either flags or I don't know, some wrists thingy that you don't have to hold the flag, but it's some visual cues both to remind you or to make you more conscious that you have a specific really critical role in the game, and also for the main ref to properly see you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this issue of visual communication with the goal ref, we should have a tool. The main referee has his or her whistle. The goal ref, sometimes you have a flag and it's kind of fun to have it, but maybe a bit confused. We need to standardize this. What came to my mind would be like a handkerchief or a bandana that's got a cool bike polo logo that's like referee, line ref, this is my swag. And a bandana is a useful tool to have with you at all times. A bandana, you can put it to use. It's not just a tool for arbitration, like the whistle is also a safety tool for when you're on your bicycle. So maybe we can promote some kind of high-vis you know, I've got a kerchief and I can because honestly, for example, players like Mills yesterday was noticing many fouls, many infractions, including an illegal substitution with 4 players on the court, and he resulted to grabbing an extra chasuble, an extra jersey, neon jersey, and he was figure 8, infinity, really working hard to catch the eye of the referee. So one more remark, and then I'll do a quick presentation on restart, and then we'll talk about our takeaways of the day. Yes?
Another thing that I've talked about with somebody this morning, but it's also maybe hard to implement because you need material for it, would be to have the corner refs on the walkie-talkie.
That would be nice.
Yeah, that would be
nice.
The dream.
Yeah.
Especially for high level, the headset, you know, with the little...
When we will have a referee committee with a lot of money, we can bring scoreboard, talking shirts, ref shirts.
But in the meantime, you can do WhatsApp.
Thank you guys. We're gonna move on to the next one. Remy, did you have a remark before?
Yeah, with joke aside, this microphone is called Madonna mic.
Madonna mic.
And it costs €20 on Amazon.
20 euros on Amazon for a Madonna mic. Tournament organizers. Buy us cool toys so that we have fun. Okay, so I'm gonna cover the verbal and visual communication for the restart. Now the restart is the most common, guys please. The restart is the most common type of communication that you will engage in, and so it needs to be the most fluid and perfect. Much like learning to drive stick, at the beginning it's difficult to remember all the little steps in the right order for you to get into drive and start moving. Sometimes you stall, sometimes the engine cuts off and you have to start it again. There's a couple of things going on with the body that we all want to happen quickly. You have 10 seconds to do these communication gestures in the right order, okay? So first of all, if I see a stoppage of play, let's assume that it's a toppling foul. Then I would blow my whistle, step 1, audio communication. Secondly, I would probably indicate the foul if it's within my power. A toppling's pretty easy. Toppling this person, ball to the right, 10 seconds to be ready to defend. Now, that's a lot to say and a lot to understand. Sometimes you don't need all of that verbal communication. Sometimes it's just sufficient to blow the whistle and then 10 seconds to be ready to defend. You've declared that the 10-second clock is happening now. I have one hand up for the possessors, those who received the ball for possession and therefore have the power to start play. They're waiting for my permission. So not only have I talked to the defending team verbally, you have 10 seconds to be ready to defend. I'm communicating verbally to the defensive team, and I'm communicating visually, simultaneously, to the attacking team. Once the 10 seconds are up for the defenders, or they, on their own volition, say, ready, then I stop my count, and I immediately now communicate two different things. I now am communicating a audio to the attackers that you have 10 seconds to cross the line so that they understand what time is going down. And I'm doing this gesture here. You could even do this gesture here, say, you're not allowed defenders to cross the line. They still have time to start play, right? That's also accepted. There's a lot going on here, right? But the important one is don't cross the line. The visual is important. The ball carrier is going to look up to the referee and make eye contact to see if they have permission, and they're going to be obstacled by your hand. Look at my hand, it says you can't. And when you can, I have a new gesture. I've stopped this gesture. Too much of the pointing and things like this, and oftentimes I will point to the person I'm talking to because it's hard to get their attention. So I'm also going to point at you. Now I've got a visual and an audio just on one team, whereas both teams play part in preparing to restart. So today we're going to be cracking down on that restart to get that time as short as possible. A good restart happens in 7 seconds. It can. That's a quick restart. it's fluid, it's beautiful, it's what we enjoy, and everybody gets to play more polo that way.
Sorry, in French.
Yes.
Ça serait intéressant de peut-être faire des restarts, ok, à la chaîne, de les arrêter, peut-être pas pendant 1 heure, mais au moins d'en enchaîner quelques-uns et de s'entraîner comme ça pour justement gagner en fluidité.
Excellent idea. So Ben is proposing an activity or an exercise for referees. Just practice the restart maybe. Stop the play and then execute a restart. When would we do that? Would we do that in a tournament? No. We would do that at home during pickups. And we know that all of you people out there in your little communities love to play pickups and stuff, but who's reffing the match? How often do we have referees taking that seriously in a pickup situation? Those are the opportunities to streamline your visual cues. And again, I do it this way. I've had success with it, but I'm not saying this is standard. Everyone has a style. Some people are big talkers. Some people are very quiet. Some of our best referees are almost entirely silent. So you find what's comfortable for you. Make sure that the teams are aware because they're used to these late restarts. If you come at them with a super aggressive, super fast restart, they might get a little peeved. So at the beginning of the match, when you're addressing the team captains and assigning roles to your goal refs, you can talk about it like, hey, my restart's really quick, so please be ready to defend after a stoppage of play. Any more questions? Yes?
And ask them to say, like yesterday it happened a lot, where you don't ask, are you ready? And you just say, 10 seconds to be ready, they will go into position, but not say ready. So ask them at the beginning of the game, okay, please say ready when you are ready. Just a quick reminder.
Absolutely. Sometimes the team will be ready to defend and they don't declare that they're ready to defend. Maybe it's tactical because Bernard is so tired from trying to chase around these players that are good that he wants his 10 seconds to relax. But yes, it's nice that when those teams communicate with you that they can relinquish the time because that means more time with the ball in play.
I also think another thing that happens is that the team says they are ready, but I as a ref don't hear it because there's too many things happening around and they are too quiet. So I think maybe it's another good thing to say at the start of the game to the teams, when you are ready, make eye contact and say you are ready.
Eye contact is one of the powerful.
See the player and you hear them.
Absolutely. Try to grab eye contact with the players as you can. The thumbs up, etc., etc. Okay, so I'm going to sorry to turn down any more questions. We're going to move on to the next subject, which is just going to be kind of very quickly a tour de table. We're going to each person, if you're interested, to share some thoughts in whatever language you're comfortable with about some takeaways you've had from the ref camp so far, experiences, reflections, ideas that you want to share. And we'll start with Annelise. Guys, I'm going to give you really have more. You've got 30 seconds to a minute to talk here. We're very tight on time. We can't spend 20 minutes doing this, but we'll try. So, Annelise.
Give an example, maybe.
Okay, I'll give an example of some reflections that I've seen.
Yeah.
Did I forget a team for presentation? Yeah. What was the subject?
The important one.
Advantage and foul of the referee. Thank you so much. We have one more presentation. Please come up.
Ah bah c'est une sportsman. C'est un livre. Un sportsman.
Yeah. Oh yes. The team name is Unsportsman, and they're going to talk about.
We're Unsportsman.
Yeah, that's the team because you're winning the tournament. Anyways, go ahead.
Go first. That was the first day.
Yeah.
So
it's illegal to be first.
So we're gonna be talking about like calling a foul or calling an advantage. I guess it's basically the hardest thing of reffing, because you're on your stand reffing and basically you're judging who's in possession all the time and like watching everything, and all of a sudden a foul happens. And then the first thing you have to decide is who's in possession. And yeah, then afterwards you of course have to pro either an advantage or whistle a foul.
Yeah, and for a foul, or both for foul or advantage, just check always, of course, with your line ref, corner ref, to see if they clearly saw something that you are not seeing from here. Of course, very obvious, blow the whistle, make it obvious that you have to stop the game if it's a foul. And then you can, of course, restart the game after a foul, as we've talked before so many times. If it's an advantage, I think it's a little bit more confusing for all, or for me at least. What I would do is, again, eye contact with the corner ref, previously have an obvious visual signal that to separate fault from an advantage, and use the auditory tools that we have, the cowbell. If you don't have a cowbell, well, just shout a classic advantage, until the ball carrier loses the possession. And I think this is also very interesting. There's like a couple of ways that the team in the advantage or with the advantage can lose the possession. The ones that I've got here are crossing behind your own goal. We had that yesterday. I think Hugo was explaining it to his teammate. I think he didn't know about that. So that's one way that you can lose your possession. That you end your own advantage. If you score a goal, that's pretty obvious, right? You have your point, and we restart the game as always. Or if the defending team regains the control or the possession of the ball, and that's also very interesting because that's like what I have in theory. It's like when you have a possession, if you clearly have two touches, deliberate touches on the ball, right? That's what the rule says, I think. But I've played games where sometimes they touch you one time and they stop the advantage that I had, so that's not as easy as it sounds in the theory. But yeah, that's the ways of ending the advantage here.
Don't you have to, if you take a shot and you miss the goal, I think it ends the advantage as well?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
No.
Can we say that again?
It's not a control.
No. If you are in control and shooting.
If you another way to relinquish the advantage is
you don't have to shoot. You just have to take control of the ball.
we're talking about as the attackers that have possession. Another way for possession to terminate, it's not just a goal. It's not just a passing behind your goal line after having crossed the middle, but also if you take a specific kind of shot, right? A shot
Deflected in the
that deflects out of the crease. That is the rule. If it deflects out of the crease, that means it crosses the crease and either hits a bike or a goal and then exits the crease. If you take a wild shot that crosses the crease but it isn't on frame and bounces on the back wall, advantage can still be permitted to continue. Yes, where's Mark?
Question. What happens if there is a foul while there is a loose ball? No team is in possession.
When there's a foul and nobody has clear possession, does the referee call a foul or does he call advantage? Is the question asked.
And wait. You wait to see who catch the ball.
Yeah.
You wait. Very good, Benjamin. You
Yeah.
wait. If possession is not clear and determined when a foul is committed, then advantage is called until clear possession is determined. Yes.
I don't think so. Like, going straight by the rules, it doesn't say anything about like waiting until somebody has possession. Because like the way, like I've had some, like this is also usually how I ref it, the way you're saying it. Like, the foul happens, I wait until somebody has clear possession, but looking at the rules and thinking about it, I think what you should do is, if it's a loose ball, then the team who has been fouled on does not have possession, so there's no advantage. If it's a loose ball, you whistle and the team gets the ball.
This is very good remark, isn't it? Because it sticks with the spirit or the understanding of the law. Why did we create the advantage law? Can anybody give me a quick summary of why advantage exists in our sport? It's a very complicated thing. It's super heavy to ref. Why do we have it? Why does it exist?
Yeah, well, easy example is like a defensive foul. Like somebody, you're on defense and the attacker, you just foul him. If there would be the ball rewarded to the team, then it's like an easy defense. Like you just have to foul and they go back to their own half.
So this is very good point, right? That's what the advantage is for. I've been fouled, but my position still affords me maybe very clear winning opportunities. I have possession. The game, it takes only 2 seconds to really take a shot on goal. So we have this habit of giving advantage when they have possession that is clear and can continue to play even after they've taken their foul. So I think Yule's remark is very, very interesting. Maybe we need to consider to not say advantage as often. The only time maybe advantage can be clearly given is if possession is clear and an opportunity to continue play in a good way is clear. Then we give advantage. You know, that's a very good remark, and I think I'm going to take that to heart and try to call advantage less. My reflex as a referee is to just assume there's advantage every time and then blow the whistle when I feel like it's a foul. But that's actually not appropriate. I think this is a very good remark.
Yes. Does any foul need an advantage?
Does every foul need an advantage? Maybe not.
No.
We're going to talk about it when we talk about infractions and their severity.
It's hard an advantage. You can take the ball 1 minute, have several shots, just for a little foul in your corner. It's not an opportunity to goal.
It's
so
inappropriate.
Give an advantage for that.
You can
really
pay
big
the club.
advantage.
Yeah.
Really big
Yeah,
advantage.
absolutely.
Maybe it's
We'll take 2 more remarks and then we'll move forward. Yes.
Mine is real brief. So yeah, I actually relate the advantage situation more related to like the fluidity of the game. So if an advantage will just make the game continue, as opposed to like remarking a foul to stop the game and restart the game again. So that's the only one that I had.
In theory, at the end of advantage, it will be a stoppage or a goal. So we're kind of just pushing back the stoppage.
Yeah.
But it is true that when that goal is awarded, it does save 1 stoppage from play, which is interesting. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I actually see it more in terms of fairness than of fluidity.
No, for sure.
Yes, fairness is a priority over fluidity when we're applying advantage rules. That's a good remark to make. Very good. Yes, one more?
To Tristan's question, I don't think advantage or not advantage has anything to do with the severity of the foul. I think, like, even if it's a little foul and you're in possession, you're being fouled on, it's an advantage.
So we're going to address this when I talk about fouls in the next talk. So organize your thoughts about this, and we will revisit it. Okay, guys? Thank you so much for the presentation from Unsporting. Yes. Now, I'll give just a quick case in point of a remark that I wanted to make about the referee camp. Tristan and I were talking yesterday, as all of us were, about reffing, and it was very fun. And one thing that we conceived together that would be very fruitful for this event is to try to propose a roadmap for our bike polo community that brings us towards better arbitration at our events. So what does this roadmap have? Tips and tricks on how to ref good? No. It's a roadmap more of how to push our community in the right direction in order to improve arbitration. For example, encouraging properly and seriously reffed pickup matches in your home clubs, and then bringing those learned and practiced skills to the events. That's one of the fastest ways we'll start to get returns. But there are many ways that we could improve arbitration for the future on this roadmap. And I invite you all to organize your thoughts about how we can make arbitration better. Is it through maybe more time spent in creating committees that understand and study the rules? Maybe Tristan is a big proponent of understanding how the rules come from conception in the mind or incidents on the court that then get translated into official rules on our rule set. For right now, for me and many other players, the rules, as Tristan said, just kind of fall from the sky, and we're like, oh, okay, now this is the new rule. Let's everybody adapt. Putting clarity on that process is also going to improve arbitration in our sport. So organize your thoughts about the roadmap that we can maybe present to our community at the end of this ref camp. So raise your hands. Who has a remark about their experience? If you don't want to talk, you don't have to. Remil, can we get a camera on Remil from Bordeaux? Each of you.
So yesterday, during the morning talks, we discussed the accuracy of shuffles, and shall we call shuffles or not? And so we kind of got to the point that it's sort of archaic procedure from the 2000s, and that today this discussion about shuffles is very present in order to make it more inclusive and so on. And while we started the pickups yesterday, well, the matches, the first match was a kind of experimental match where Tristan was on the court, so we also could score with our foot, with shuffles and so on. And since it was the first match of the tourney, and it was announced as a match where we can shuffle. And so, to me, as a player, I understand that the whole tournament is gonna be with shuffle allowed. But it was just a punctual match ref by Tristan, which he tried to experiment new techniques and see how it goes when the referee is on the court, etc. So it was very not clear to me, and I took it as a statement for the entire tourney that we can shuffle. And so at one point we were having our third match, and with my teammate I was like, oh, it's so fun, we allowed shuffles and no one is shuffling. And so during that match I had like a big opportunity. I was all alone in front of the goal, and so I did shuffle, but like really like on purpose. And this goal wasn't counted. So, and I was really confused because I mean I'm not a wine man, because anyways we were losing. But it wouldn't have changed anything at the end. But
Okay, yeah, excellent. This is, I think the takeaway from this anecdote is currently in our communities of bike polo, there is so much differentiation in the way people arbitrate a match and also how tournaments organize themselves, that some of our more novice players, like, I mean, how many weeks or months have you been playing bike polo?
8 months.
Remil's been playing bike polo for 8 months. These kinds of differences do create trouble in a tournament. It can happen. It's happened to me. The previous match, they called this way. The next match, now all of a sudden my timeouts, I have less, or they're shorter, or there's some new rule that is now properly being applied that I wasn't familiar with. As referees in an event, we want to homogenize, we want to meet, we want to talk, we want to be making the same calls. Thank you, Emile. Do we have another anecdote or something that we want to talk about? Vas-y, sure.
Yeah. I found we were very maybe shy, or there were so much force, knowing we were watched. And we played clean, and a lot of games were really. So it was kind of performance to ref during 14 minutes. So let's make fools.
Yes. More fouls. We didn't see enough fouls to try to test our refs because we're at a ref camp. Yeah, that's very good.
We were having a little team talk before the match. I was like, okay, let's try to be more edgy. This is supposed to be, we want to give some food to the rest, but nothing happened. So I was like, afterwards, like, why did I even?
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to. What's his name again?
Lucas.
Yeah, I want to thank Lucas for the game I was with because he's really committing a lot of fouls.
Very good. Any other anecdotes? Yes, Lucas?
Yeah, we had the runs where we had to ref, and it happened that we had to ref one match after another. For me, it was a great try, like one ref and then another match to ref, and for me it was great. Like during 30 minutes, I had to ref and be focused on that, and it was great training. So I would even maybe love to have one morning in a tourney where you are in the afternoon group. In the morning, you are supposed to ref almost all the match, and then you really get experience. Because otherwise, you get just sleepy.
Agreed. It's nice to squat a court sometimes.
Yeah.
When you have a team as a referee, it's so much nicer when you have your team prepared and you sit down and say, let's knock out 3 matches, boom, boom, boom. Yeah. Rather than appearing, somebody's begging you to ref, you hear it on the mic, and you show up and it's chaos. This is a much harder match to take.
In my experience, just go to a tournament and do it, and everybody will be happy that there's somebody on the ref side.
There's also a culture of not doing it in Polo.
No, but when you do this, you're really tired. After 3 games of reffing, you're seeing less and less things, and sometimes you're just having a very bad game, and you're next to your game, and then you just want to go out.
And maybe the sun is just blasting you in the back, or the rain is just trouncing you, and you're in tough weather conditions, and it's just miserable, right? Sometimes it's very hard to find a referee. Yes, Rita.
I know I was because it's not always easy to ref. Because I also got situation where people say I don't want to do ref.
Okay, that's a good.
That's also you have to be aware that things like that can happen. And of course, it's the right of the players to say, I want another ref. After the guy said, I don't want to ref you, that you ref, I said in the game, he was repping my game, I don't want to ref. And then it was clear, and it was no problem. And
right.
I'm repping his games.
I see. Yeah, now this can happen. Maybe the teams request a different referee, and we all know it's very poor form, actually, as a team, to approach the ref that is on his pedestal and say, could you find someone else? Now, it can happen that high-level teams that want really good arbitration, they're tasteful, and they will go find a referee that they want and say, hey, Will, we like your style, and we feel safe when you're reffing. Will you come ref our match, please? That's the kind of interaction you want and what we want to promote. It's not much fun when somebody says, hey, thanks, but no thanks. So it can happen, and it won't happen very often, especially if you're gaining an experience. The same thing can happen with line referees as well, your goal refs. It's at the discretion of the referee to make those decisions, who that person is. Sometimes you want to accommodate teams and players because they don't feel confident about your goal ref. But other times, you feel like your goal ref is, that's my teammate. That's my person. We've got a thing in play. We've reffed several matches together. I don't want, McFly. Sorry. I want my goal ref. And that's your authority to make as a center referee. Any more remarks before we continue? We're just about to hand it off to Trini for her presentation. But
I was just having some good points about how to, as a tournament organizer, I'm also thinking what could be a good way to apply a referee plan. As Jules was saying, just go ref. This is of course a good thing for you to learn refing, but it's not a good thing for others to be forced to refing. So
This
if
is
you want
true.
the sport to be a ref by the players, then everybody has to get into it.
I really like that we're talking about this particular social aspect of the arbitration. It provides a wonderful segue for Trini and her talk. And I see she's preparing her last minute touches, so I'll share with you an anecdote from the Epiphany tournament this year. That's a high level tournament. I was solicited by the organizers to ref some of the last matches. And I refed about 3 matches in a row. It was semifinals and finals in one of the most toughest tournaments in France. And so I was nervous, and I had my team of referees, and they were on point. I remarked that Bull, who knows Bull? Yes, Bull was in the corner, and she was doing a wonderful job being a goal ref, despite the many obstacles. Tons of people around her smoking and drinking. Everybody's laughing and heckling. Well, when the final came, there was a bit of an incident. Before that final, she even refused a goal for me. There was a goal that was not legal. I got off of the court. I went over there. People are shouting. I'm talking to Drew. She looks at me stone cold, and she's like, no goal. T-bone or some foul after the goal or something off ball that she saw that I wasn't sure of. And I felt so elated and confident that she had that confidence and was doing her job so well. And my call was correct, and everything proceeded smoothly. Gave me huge confidence in Drew. When the final came, some players, I don't even remember who the teams were, they were like, yeah, we want some different goal refs. We want it super solid. They didn't have confidence in the committee of people having fun over there. They didn't really know who was goal reffing or how good of a job they were doing. And I, as the main referee, wanted to accommodate them. After all, I had just been asked to ref. If these teams that are some of the best in the world want me to, make a small personnel shift for my team so that the fluidity of the game goes well, I felt ready to accommodate them. And I did it. But inside, in my heart, I thought, that's bullshit, man. She's doing a great job. She's my teammate, and I, as a referee, want to protect my teammate and put them in value. Now, Bu's tough, and she's like, yeah, well, I don't feel like I probably didn't want to, do the final, rather hang out with everyone else. She was volunteering and being a participant, a wonderful member of our community, and I feel like in retrospect, when I organized my thoughts about it, I feel like maybe I should have said to those teammates, sorry, but I have a lot of trust in Drew, and I'm really pleased with her performance. I'm going to make this call, and we're going to keep our arbitration team as it is. It's your discretion as a referee to address those kinds of issues. And of course, everybody, we're a loving community, and we all appreciate and admire each other. So these kinds of situations where, aggressivity or difficulty or conflict and confrontation, we do need to take some time to study this, especially with the way all of the minorities that participate in our community interact with this aspect. So with that, we're going to give it to Trini, and she's going to talk, give a presentation on the social aspects and the implications of reffing. Thank you, Trini.
Okay, hi. So I'm a little nervous. Okay, so I've titled the presentation "We Need to Talk" because we're gonna do a small workshop. So we're gonna get into teams of 4. We're 4. How many are we? Like we all, and Bernard and you, and like everybody has to be invited. So I'll start out. I've got to talk about the safety and equipment. I'm mostly going to talk about the safety, and it's going to intersect with what Tristan was talking about yesterday, related with the ethics of the sport, let's say. So I'm going to start out the presentation with the following question. Thank you so much. So, there you go. Yes. So So I'm gonna propose to let's play a game. So and it starts with this question I had posed in other group chats, both Flinta, non-Flinta, the Spanish group chat, the general Flinta chat in Telegram as well. And I'll get into like the responses I had from this question because it might be like very broad question, but that's part of the idea. So the question is, does having rules in the sport promote your participation in the game? So I understand that everybody will interpret this question very broadly, and that's how I would like to start the presentation. And if we could get into those groups of 4 where you discuss how you interpret this question. And basically, if you needed guidance, this would be as opposed to not having any rules whatsoever, would you still want to participate in this sport? So get into those groups. We can be the same groups that we've been in, maybe?
Yeah, the teams.
Okay, teams. You know your teammates, get together, discuss this question. You've got 3 minutes.
Off we go. 3 minutes.
This is not a break. We're just getting together to talk, and then we're coming right back to our
On va bien faire un café. On va se faire un café.
Parle pas trop.
Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, what do you think? Did I go wrong?
Without the rules, early times you were just
Est-ce que les règles dans le sport, tu participes au sport? Est-ce que même s'il n'y a pas de règles, parce que
c'est un cadre
c'est ce qu'on pouvait mettre en place pour se protéger les autres, mais en équipement. Non, mais c'est une question en équipement. Peut-être pas.
Est-ce que avoir des règles ça t'incite à participer à un sport? Ah, ok. Parce que ne pas avoir de règles, même s'il n'y avait pas de règles, tu jouerais quand même. Vraiment, cette question-là, parce que les règles n'ont pas de la pratique ou matériaux sportifs.
C'est pas les règles qui m'ont amené au polo. Mais par contre, c'est bien que dans le polo, il y ait des règles pour structurer, pour se protéger les uns des autres, etc. Mais c'est pas les règles qui... C'est pas parce que j'ai vu, ah tiens, il y a cette règle au polo, je vais aller jouer au polo.
Non, ouais.
Par contre, j'aurais pas dit de règles qui en fait but, ça aurait pas de sens.
Ouais.
Du coup, il y aurait pas de règles.
Non, on est d'accord. Oui, non, mais je pense que l'anarchie totale sur un sport, c'est absurde. Enfin, ça c'est limite assez vite. Non, mais... Ah ok, sorry, j'avais pas compris la question.
For me, sport is
emancipation as well. No creation in general.
Why?
Because a rule is the goal is to
Please find your seats.
But stay close because then we're going to keep working as like
On s'assoit. Essayez de garder proche entre vous parce qu'on va se remettre en cours après. Try to sit next to your group so that because there are going to be more questions. So. Please, guys, back to your seats. If we're gonna have a presentation on fouls, then we need to sit down and get going. So please sit down. Okay, quiet, please. Back to Trini.
Okay, so what I would like is to briefly each team to share what you understood or how you interpreted this question and what are your brief findings. So we can start over here. How did you answer or how did you interpret this question or what did you understand from it or if you agree or disagree or yeah.
We didn't have an answer yet, so but there's two parts in the question. One is what does it mean having rules in the sport? And we basically our finding was there's no rules, there's no sports or game or whatever without rules. The question is how strict and how, and then the other question is does having them promote the participation in the game? And this was kind of interesting because like if you're trying to get people playing, you're not throwing the rule book in there and saying read it before, because then people would be running away and never come. So you kind of it's like you start playing and then explain the rules by saying, and then people play after a couple of months, and then you come, oh yeah, and then there's this book of rules. Actually, but you
at
can
least
read
for
it,
safety, right? You have to explain the basic rules mainly for safety. I think, yeah. And as Richie was mentioning something interesting for me, like in the past, I think it maybe was slightly different from from how people starting today would react to this question. People in the past maybe were like not caring at all about very specific rules.
Okay.
Maybe we didn't even have those rules like a lot of time in the past, but nowadays I think we're in a different generation, different way of thinking, and I think people or newbies, at least in my experience in my club, I also think they are like more interested about okay, so but can you do that? But that's not very safe. That's not something that And the old school players who taught me, it's like
Not really. Okay,
not really.
so
it was really interesting to hear his opinion on that.
okay, great. So your conclusion would be that having rules structures the sport.
Yeah.
Would that be it? Yep.
Yeah, can you repeat that again?
So having rules structures the sport.
It creates a structure,
structure.
a building, a skeleton that we fill with organs and
I can
flesh.
agree with that.
Okay. Great. Next team.
Yes.
How did you understand this question? You disagree, you agree? How did you interpret?
Well, I oriented a bit my team because I already answered on Telegram.
Okay.
And we all asked for, can you explain the context to answer well?
Understand.
And it's more like, feeling safe because there is rules in the game. And of course, yes, I said yes.
Having rules make the sport safer, but also interesting. Like we can't put our feet on the ground. That's make the sport interesting. If we don't have rule, what it's a goal, what is not a goal, like that makes structure and make the polo fun and safer.
Yeah, next group, remarks?
It's giving you some orientation. As I started to play polo, I never asked the question if there are rules or not, because it's actually a game and you can't play a game if you don't have rules. I mean, think about the joust. 6 people are going through the joust. What's that? One wall somewhere, and the other ones are lying on the floor.
Yeah, this is why we have to have a rule that says only one person on the team can joust. It's instructions to play the game, and therefore it's kind of for the posterity of our sport to have a document that you can read and in theory be able to create a club and play bike polo on your own without having somebody teach it to you old school style, right? Just by being a pro and understanding.
Like I said yesterday, the rules make the sport, the philosophy of the sport, the feeling of the sport. If you write a rule set of any sport, a short one maybe, we need a shorter one to explain to newbies. But you know the feeling of the sport, or you make teams. Is it really strict? Is it open? How do you secure the players with the foul? So yeah, rules make the sport. So
all right. Thank you. Next team. Blair, yes.
Yeah, we like make a separation like between game and sport. Like in my opinion, the game starts with a bike, a mallet, and a ball, and maybe a goal. And then you start experimenting, and you can do foot goals, you can do shuffles. You start a game, you start playing. You're playing whatever you are doing.
Like even solo polo.
Even solo polo, whatever. And then the rules make the sport for me. Like we are every time playing a sport, so we don't consider like this kind of experimentation as much. But yeah, one thing for me is a game, and then when you put rules and you have like a rule set, then it became a sport, and that makes sense to play safe, to have a purpose. No?
Yeah, so the distinction between game, just you play on your own, then you don't need rules, right? You just play with the ball and you do things. But once you interact with other people and you maybe go to tournaments or to a game, you need the goals to apply to know what is a goal, what is not a goal, what is a foul. So I really like this approach, like having a game with a ball and a bike, and having a sport.
Right.
And
rules.
Right.
So a brief thing right there. So exactly, like there's a distinction at the end of the 19th century when the first Olympics take place, where there's exactly that precise distinction that you're talking about, where they realize that there's a difference between like just playing a random game, having fun, leisure, let's say, versus competitiveness, and that's where like rules start having a big part within the sports world, let's say. Okay. All right. Any next team?
You elders don't take me bad, but in the first years of bike polo, it was very virile and brutal play. So, and I think that it also was because there was no or almost no rules. It was kind of, you're the strongest, you push the harder and you win. And so that's the reason why for many years it was kind of not as inclusive as we tend to do it today. And so it was very niche, so even though it's still niche today, we tend to open our sport thanks to those rules, which are here to make kind of horizontal access to the game. And it's not like you're the stronger and you push it further and you just break the jaw off.
You're going in for the kill, exactly. All right, okay. Yes.
Also the rules, with the rules, wherever you come from, you play the same game. We understand each other, even if we don't speak the same language.
Great.
You create like one language.
Great.
That's cool.
Great. It makes it possible to play wherever. In Taiwan, for example. Okay. All right. Everybody has participated, right? Yes. Okay. So that takes me to the next slide, because this conversation that we had internally within the group chat of the Quintas of Spain, very briefly in the general Spanish chat, and well, in the general Flinta chat very briefly as well. So because of the possibility of misinterpretation, can we go to the next slide? We were saying that, well, I mean, rules are about common sense. I mean, of course, it's just being like playing fair, being nice. But then the thing is that it's not really common sense, right? Because rules have interpretations. And can we agree on disagreeing? Why am I saying this? Because I've sent this video. If you could briefly look at it, it's in Telegram chat in our referee.
Fun. Let's pull out our little phones, and there's a video we can consult in Telegram.
Right?
The Benji one?
The Benji one, is it? No.
It's on the screen. It's on the screen.
Oh, it's on the screen.
There it is. So, okay, so provided by Bernard as well, that we were talking about how would you interpret this foul, right? So as like there are two different fouls happening at kind of like the same time, but not really. There's one, I believe that would be my interpretation of it. I believe is it Jason and Pasquier? So I believe it's
Mark Tampar versus Jason, two of some of the best players in the world.
Right. So I believe the way I interpret it is that Jason does the first whale tail before the T-bone. Okay, that's my interpretation. And again, can we agree on disagreeing? So common sense is not really common sense. How would we interpret the rule? How would we apply the rule? And why is it necessary to be a safe sport? Sorry, 1 second. Yes.
Yeah, it looks like the wheel is on the ground.
Okay, let me interrupt. We're not talking about who committed a foul here. That'll be a discussion about fouls. What we're talking about is the principle that there are incidents where people are going to disagree about the interpretation of the rules. Okay. This is our takeaway. It's not, let's figure out who did the foul here. Back to Trinity.
Exactly. 1 second. Okay, so the rule interpretation, right? It's pretty complicated. That's why it's important to go over them to be able to agree on it. And if we don't agree with it, that's why we also have rules. So then the next question would be who makes the rules, right? And who do they apply to, pretty much, and why? That's something could be an even further discussion, right? But before we continue with that, the next exercise I briefly wanted to do is, I don't know if we could divide the rule set amongst the teams, like, for example, to take 2 sections per teams, so as to look for what they find within the rule set are safety measures, like explicitly safety measures. Could that be done real briefly?
Okay.
Real quickly?
And does everybody have access to
I've sent the rule set through, again, Telegram.
Okay, very good. This is wonderful for my presentation as well. In section 6, we have infractions. And you can consult that to see what was this rule made for. Was it for safety? This is the activity?
Yeah, no, but in all of the rule set. That's why I'd like for us to divide between teams, like the first and second section, because even within the equipment you can find like safety measures.
Okay, so your team name, please study those rules. If your team name is unsporting, then look at the unsporting section. If your team name is toppling, then look at the toppling section. And look around that area too.
And so on and so forth.
So,
okay?
yes.
Briefly.
Okay, 5 minutes. We're going to give you 5 minutes to organize. Is that okay, Trini?
Yeah, perfect.
5 minutes,
How much
guys.
time do I have? So what time do I have?
On doit chercher dans le ruleset des exemples de règles. Je cherche à créer la méthode de sécurité pour le ouais, mais là, chercher les règles, ils font la synthèse. C'est vrai que c'est un peu quand même un truc aussi comme geste.
De Jason Ah ouais, donc c'est pour ça qu'il y a. On ne sait pas s'il y a faute de Jason ou Jason de Grey. Donc t'as le droit de faire ça. T'as le droit de faire ça. C'est là où
Okay, so we need the French ruleset.
Just want to make bad things most of the time.
So then, how can we do this? Yeah, but if they feel better or more comfortable with the French ruleset, that's what I mean.
Have you got the French rule set, Bernard? By any chance, have you got the French version of the rule set?
Yeah, but the thing is that that's not the
En gros, tu viens de dire, ouais, mais attention, on aurait amené du ouais, mais le jeu, là, on parle de faute si c'est voté. Si on prend cet exemple, c'est que.
Je partais d'un exemple, on ne cherche pas même à comprendre, on cherche juste à dire dans les règles du jeu, un exemple, un make their equivalent qui amène
So yeah, if somebody's down and you're gonna get in their way, it's more. It's not like it's not like a team. You're needing to
Bah ouais, c'est le gars qui commence à faire des trucs chelous.
Moi, c'est vrai, c'est compliqué.
Ouais, moi ce qui me frustre, c'est que logiquement ce genre d'action, c'est sujet à discussion. Bon, bah, ok. Pour toi, c'est clair, net et précis que Jason. La boucle, c'est quoi? C'est quand tu recules. Non.
Quand tu as la roue arrière, c'est un pivot avec. Tu bloques avec ta roue arrière, avec tes roues, vu que ta une roue qui pose, tu rentres dedans, mais tes roues, ta roue elle pose. C'est la faute de la.
Okay, 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Par contre, si tu veux
2 minutes remaining.
et que là, boum, l'autre il arrive, et que ça se joue à 1 milliseconde, c'est faute de T-Bone. Donc là, faute de T-Bone, clairement. Bah, moi, je vois le jeu, c'est pas ça que je vois pas. Bâtard. C'est bâtard en plus.
Les gars, si vous voulez parler en français quand vous présentez, je vais la traduire en anglais. Ok.
Bah, de toute façon, parle en français. Je sais, c'est pas la question du truc, mais du coup, c'est sur l'exemple
Moi je sais que si vous avez c'est parce que c'est derrière de Jason. En fait, on voit que c'est couche vidéo et c'est plus tard que tu vois les bras de Martin. Donc ça implique son impact et tu peux même entendre son impact avec le vélo et d'après que vous pouvez poser. Et donc si Jason pendant son saut il était dans l'air,
le contact est pendant que Jason est en l'air,
avant qu'il a repris sa stabilité et sa position. Et des fois, ça arrive, on reprend exactement le même temps. Et là, on rejoue. Si c'est trop serré,
en plus, en temps direct. On n'a pas de ralenti, mais on n'a pas de VAR.
Non, on n'a pas le ralenti, mais c'est précisément une faute qui existe dans les règles. C'est quand les deux joueurs commettent une faute simultanément et tu accordes une faute de
Et ça, c'est faute de coïncidence.
Faute de coïncidence.
Ok, donc si tu es dans le flou, tu sais pas trop, tu peux coller ça.
Ouais, tu colles ça, lui il a fait des trucs que j'aime pas, et ensuite toi t'as fait des trucs que j'aime pas.
Ouais.
On va rajouter une faute de coïncidence.
Typiquement, on n'a pas la vidéo, on n'a pas tu rêves, tu fais une faute de coïncidence, là c'est ok.
C'est peut-être même le meilleur, c'est le meilleur.
Pour moi, ça c'est le meilleur.
C'est peut-être même mieux que le mien, parce que les deux équipes vont se dire bon,
on peut rajouter en fait.
Une coïncidence, c'est des fautes simultanées, c'est un rejout pour renouer la position. Et il n'y a pas d'avantage.
Moi, je suis désolé, j'ai forcé sur ça, mais c'était important pour moi de comprendre.
To participate?
Okay, everybody, that's it for the time. We need to bring it back together and give Trini her attention again. Thank you.
Alrighty, so great. So again, like this was not only part of like the presentations exercise or workshop or whatever, but the idea of this is to, like for some of you even, might be the case, to have access and read the rules and look at them real brief. I mean, it's been 5 minutes, so I don't know how much you could have seen. But, okay, so maybe let's start again in order like this. So what rules have you found within what section that you consider are important or relevant or whatever related to safety? And why would they be like safety measures?
So this is the team Unsporting. So tell us, go on.
Okay. So yeah, with team Unsporting, that's why we took on team unsporting behavior, and yeah, we started by reading all these infractions and or these cases, and while all of this at the first moment, not reading very carefully, seemed like fairness issues. On a second thought, they are actually very much security issues, because it's all like creating an emotional unsafe environment, like all of these, like you know, you
and can be like triggering.
So could you give us a maybe just an example, a thought experiment? Which one of these points would you like to address and talk about how it could be a safety issue out of these?
Like emotionally safety, I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, the last one, like a player engaging in verbal, physical assault, like literally, like, you know, if like we were speaking about the Zinedine Zidane vibe. You know, he got an insult that he was the only one, and the reaction was this. But like, yeah, anyhow, if you have like an emotional, you know, way of speaking, like in a way like you want to, like, I don't know, target someone in a way, you never know what kind of trigger you will wake up.
Also,
So, we would say that that's not like motivating to come back to polo, because sometimes like you don't want to be in triggering spaces, right? So it's necessary to be safe, right?
Yeah. Also, all these are like points where like rules have already been violated, and the person is not respecting to be the violator, or like disrespecting the rules even more by normalizing the disrespecting of the rules.
Okay.
So yeah.
Great.
So this is why those are all very heavy no-goes.
Yeah.
Perfect. That was great.
Just to quickly add on that, and when you do, or if you're a ref and you are receiving that type of harassment, let's call it like that, it sets like a tone for you. It really just so that you are not concentrated in doing your work as a ref, or at least I feel that, and then I'm just overthinking about what happened with that player, and I'm losing what's going on the
Start
rest
spiraling.
of yeah, you know, and then that player or two players are doing like weird eye contact or doing some weird reactions with you, calling you stuff, and you know that increases the tone and tension that you as a ref receive, and you go down in your shell, and I'm a shitty ref. Oh my god! And while they are killing between each other, the rest of the four players, you know, so that's important to step away, like quality, and just to be a little bit confident. If it's just for the outside, if you are dying in the inside, just don't die on the outside.
So we're basically saying
theory.
that,
In practice, we all know it's not that easy.
so we're saying that like these kinds of rules support you as a player, as a ref.
As a, yeah, I'm thinking more as a ref right now because I felt that, you know, like
Gives you that support,
if
that
you
safety.
start to go down emotionally, you're
done.
set to be going down. And
Yeah, you're done.
You have to stay there. Call sporting behavior if it's necessary, and you stay where you are. Try to feel confident, and that's a rule that helps you to avoid that.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, love this. Next team.
I totally agree with Crystal.
Which section did you see? Which?
Flagrants.
Flagrants.
6.3.8.1.2.3.
What?
7.
No.
12 and 12.
6.3
at the end. 6.3.8.
6.3.8.
Yeah.
Flagrants. Here it is. Woo! A lot of rules, right? Flagrants.
Tell us. Yes.
It's almost like unsportsman. Every foul could be a flagrant. So it's more like we say the interpretation of a foul and the intention of a player who act badly. And it can be a T-bone, it can be a mallet under the wheel, it can be throwing his mallet, throwing the bike of someone who make a foul. So it's the rules is for safety.
Would this be like, as opposed to like emotional safety, would this be more for physical safety?
Twice.
For both?
Yeah, but on sportsmen, it's more
Psychological,
emotional, yeah.
and this would be more physical safety. Yeah? Okay.
Yes, it's quite. We see physical contact will be deemed excessive. So here we go.
I'm not able to pick one rule, but it's more a philosophical aspect. It's how you feel the intention of the action. It can be very aggressive, domination, and the same action is not has not the same intention, and it's the way you feel that. If it's pure anger or
Right,
violence,
the aggressiveness,
yes,
the violence,
or just in the game.
It's all about interpretation of one rule. The same rule could be nothing or flagrant. Even a T-bone. It's all for safety.
All right, next team.
Easy for us.
It's us.
What is it?
Interferences.
What
Like,
number, section?
Sorry. 613.
613.
So back interference, body interference, and mallet interference, because we think that these faults occurs when a player isn't in possession of the ball. And when you're not in possession of the ball, you're not ready to get in contact with a bike, body, or a mallet. And so that's why we think this rule is for the safety, physical safety.
Compared to dabbing, for example, the rule about dabbing, we think is more game mechanics.
Yeah, dabbing or talking.
Okay, all right.
I would kind of disagree that this is because like the classical screen is also like, I think what's really not nice about this is like creating this emotional feeling of defenseless, or like not being able to engage. Like, you know, you're going for the ball and somebody blocks you. It doesn't even, it makes you, I don't know.
Friction.
Yeah, you get this, you
unfairness.
Yeah, you get this feeling of unfairness applied to you, or like this helplessness, and this is kind of
could go hand by hand, like the emotional with the physical.
Yeah.
Maybe the intersections.
I didn't get your point.
like if you are being screened, like you want to defend, but you can't because the other opponent is. I mean, we don't have this situation not so much anymore, but it used to be a common playing that you're running back, trying to save the ball, but then the other player just drives you again. It creates this kind of like passive aggressive thing, and that makes
that
it
passive
raises
aggressiveness.
Yeah, but I think everything in Polo is hurting you. It's so short, the game, so the intensity is very high and everything.
Yeah, but there's like it's different because if you feel you can do something that you didn't make it, but if you could have made it, but somebody is like you're feeling like this unfairness feeling is applied to you, so that makes for unnecessary aggression. So it's
no, you say.
Okay. So Trini and I were discussing this, and we were of the accord that if we were to study our three big main poles that a referee should take into consideration when they're reffing a game, what are they? The number one? Safety. And what are 2 and 3? Fairness and fluidity. So if we were to take a look at this in the optic of those three big subjects, Trini and I feel that bike interference, historically, this rule was created for fairness. It was to balance the sports, the mechanics of the game, because we discovered that if I don't have the ball and I have my bike and body, then I can do a lot of damage to the offensive team's ability to strike or defend. I remember scoring so many goals, or my teammates scoring goals, because I could screen both of the players off of the ball and let them walk towards the goal and score easily. Everyone agreed this is doo-doo, it's not a good way to play, and we imposed very explicit rules that are complicated to understand to impede players from abusing that tactic, which is not good for the sports, right? So we call this more of a fluidity-based thing. But in each one of these issues, there's an opportunity for unsafe behavior to appear, right? But mainly this particular role, number one, is about fluidity.
All right, next team.
Are we on? Yes.
So illegal substitution.
Number
6.3.
6.3.
No.
6.1.5. Yes.
Oh, wait. 6.1.5. So 6.1. Sorry. 1.5. Yeah. Okay.
A player exiting the court must have at least one wheel in the designated transition area around the team's doors before the players enter across the threshold of the court. During substitution, players in the transition area around the team's door must be activated to with the ball across the player by a legal substitution.
Okay, so why is it that, tell us why you understood this as related to safety? Like, give us more.
We didn't really understand it as related to safety.
No, it's more about fairness.
Okay.
Because I don't think like a fourth player on the court doesn't really pose a physical threat or something. It's just like, you know, both teams need to have the same number of players, except if there's like a penalty. But like both teams need to have the same number of players for it to be a fair and balanced game, and I think that is fine.
Okay. Does anybody think otherwise? Yes?
Right, when you got a player just appearing in front of you on your straight hand, you don't try to get a fourth player, I think, for safety could be related.
Yes, it's happened to me for sure. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to. Yeah.
That should happen in a legal substitution.
What?
Yeah. Yes.
It also happens in illegal
Oh
substitutions.
yeah.
Yes, legal substitutions. This is an interesting point of view. Just the simple fact that your court is incomplete, and now you've got a OSB board that's sticking out at an angle that you could, chop your head off on. it's a bit of a stretch in terms of the nature of the rules, but absolutely there are dangers in substitution that we need to take into account of when we observe good, healthy substitution.
Like all rules, the same foul could be a small foul and a flagrant one. So
That's right. And remark as well that in these rules, a major penalty can be issued to a team. That's a 1 minute penalty for a player. You played with 4 players on the court. Now you're going to play with 2 for a minute. So this is there's beef, and there's powerful reffing tools available to address this particular issue.
All right. Next team, is it us? Us. Yes. Okay. So what did we find?
We didn't find anything.
Oh. No.
We were talking about
What's your team name?
But we are T-bone, so T-bone is like dangerous way to.
What's the number?
T-bone.
T-bone.
Let us review what the T-bone law is. It's a complicated foul. Let's see this T-bone law.
There's no.
There is.
It's going to be a bike contact infraction.
Yeah. What is it? It's 6.2.3.
6.2.3.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right there. Right, so, 6.2.3.1.1.
A T-bone bike contact infraction is called when a player initiates contact with an opponent carrying momentum with their wheel or pedal into the opponent in the direction they are traveling. It's hard to use technical language to describe this kind of issue, and this is a prominent issue with all of our fouls and penalties, but we know from vision and from experience, we understand what the T-bone foul is. So let's talk about it from the aspect of safety, as Trini's subjects encourages.
Let's talk about it from a safety point of view, guys. In French, if you need to.
En français?
On réfléchit.
On réfléchit.
Ne pas tuer les gens. Hein.
Prenons un exemple, le T-bone contre le goalie. Let's study the case of a T-bone against the goalie. I'm sprinting. We've all seen it, right? We don't need a mise-en situation, but with the optic of a T-bone on the goalie, safety, maybe the level of severity of this T-bone is something we all want to take into account as referees. But in general, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, that would be a very severe foul in my opinion, because you're going at a high speed or even at a low speed, doesn't matter, but like the goalie is standing in the goal, you know where the goalie is, just...
He's what? He's defenseless.
He's defenseless, and he's also like not moving, so it's predictable where he is. Like,
and there's a heavy metal, sharp, pointy, old thing that's been rusting in the sun for 5 years right behind him as well. Yes?
Yeah. Okay. So, great, thanks. So I'm gonna, how much time do I have left?
You've got 10 minutes to wrap it up, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'm gonna wrap it up real quick. The next slide would be the ethics of the game. Why do we need rules? I've basically jotted down 3 points. The idea would have been for us to come up with more reasons, more overstating the obvious, to normalize dynamics of the games of bike polo, have horizontal power dynamics in the game. So again, the idea of emotional safety, physical safety, to make the continuance of bike polo possible as well. There are new generations coming. The older generations are still part of it, but they're, in some way retiring or having families or whatever it is, right? So that makes it a bit more complicated. And then I wanted to go to state the sports ethics pretty much. So going back to what Tristan was talking to us about yesterday, it's a matter of how we, I guess the rules reveal the positioning of the sport regarding how the sport takes care of its players, of its equipment, how we use them, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm gonna skip the rest of like the history of sports. Can we go please to next? Yeah. Okay. So a part of like the discussion that came up with the question I imposed in the beginning of the presentation was like, it's common sense. It's just a matter of empathy, right? As to, again, taking care of like the physical and emotional well-being of everyone involved within the game or the sport. So I found out in a way that there is like this discussion is full of intersections. And I called this like the main intersection of this was, I called it the category of like caring for or taking care of. And in the next slide we will see it. It's I ended up understanding this more like the verb of to nurse, like nursing, right? Something. So like in a broader sense, to nurse, right? The nurse, the person that takes care of the ill, for example. Nursing, which would be like also breastfeeding in the case of motherhood, or like just the implication of to take care of, okay? But going back to the response of how many people answered the initial question, like the initial universe was 195 people, the total responses were 47. The people who answered this question that you also answered at the beginning of this presentation were yes 32, no 13, and not sure, no idea, haven't thought about it either were 2. But still, this seemed to be a question that no one had ever like posed on themselves either, because a lot that came up was, I don't understand the question, it's too broad, you have to like pin it down or whatnot. So I'm going real fast now. And then, could we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So to nurse, the idea that I was talking about and why the name of this presentation is We Need to Talk is because it, at least from my point of view, this is very subjective. Understanding the safety and equipment of the sport made me understand these intersections. These intersections made me understand this category of taking care of, or nursing in this case. So nursing and nursing a sport. Let's talk about taking care of things and people. So factors that came up would be like the age factor, right? If we want the sport to continue happening and we're having, I don't know, for example, 10-year-olds starting the sport, right? And playing against 30, 40-year-olds. So we need those rules as to not kill those babies. And then the same thing, like parenthood factor. We're having a lot of, like the senior players and whatnot that are starting to have families, but they don't want to retire from polo. But they're also, I don't know, 45, 50-year-olds. So like falls are not as easy to recover from, injuries and so on and so forth. But these are just like very punctual ideas I've come up with. Maybe we can think of other reasons why like taking care of and the ethics of the sport is needed. So this is like the part of it. Thought about like why it tends, like this taking care of, the nursing discussion comes up to, or it tends to end up becoming a gender discussion. So, because like historic stands on who takes care, who nurses who throughout humankind's history, why like the whole inclusivity question, the gender thing has to come like in the middle of the discussion of like safety, rules, and who's responsible for taking care, who's responsible for organizing, for whatever it is, right? And then like people, when I started having these conversations about like nursing, the gender thing, but like people were telling me, yeah, but it's just a matter of like basic human decency, right? But then we're back to square one, which is like common sense. Yes, like basic human decency should be common sense, but as we've seen today, it's like common sense is very, we can interpret common sense very broadly, right? I'm rushing so that we can finish this. So like my conclusion would be what we're trying to promote with, one less. There you go. So what I'm trying to conclude with all of this is like the rules or the creation of rules and the equipment and like related with safety and equipment is like to be able to create safe spaces for people to participate within the sport. So we can agree, what I've just dropped down is like, it might be a bit romantic, right? But rules are making us agree on spaces that nurse us to some degree into a game dynamic and sportiveness that allows a fair construction of a very young sport. It's a very, very young sport. It might be 20 years old or whatever, but that's still very young. That's why we're still discussing rules. That's why rules are still evolving. We're trying to understand how we want to keep on building the sport and so on. And what I'm definitely, and again, this might be very personal interpretation and way of seeing this, but I strongly believe that it's a community effort-based system. It's a sport that's not an individual leadership thing. We need like the whole community to integrate and to be part of it, to understand the different perspectives of why safety is needed, why rules are needed, why the evolution of, I don't know, equipment, of the way the bike frames are now, how light there are, the geometry of the frames, and so on and so forth. And just to briefly now conclude, like the proposals, which would come from you guys as well. I don't know if we have any time left to do this anymore, but I wanted to ask you, like, what tools, we were talking about this yesterday as well, what tools do we actually have? I know that Jules did not like my proposal of like having a VAR because that might take too much time, which means a video assistant.
What is a VAR?
Yes,
Ref?
video assistant referee. A VAR is the idea of having a camera filming the game that you can consult during play at a stoppage of time to make an informed decision on a critical moment. It is a tool strictly to promote really fairness and accuracy with the referee, and it's an interesting point of debate. Sorry to interrupt. Trini, continue.
No, that's fine. So, like, for example, as seen with the video that we briefly saw with Martin and Jason, for example, if you're reffing that game and things went fast, like you didn't have this playback, how would you decide? It would be a bit more difficult. Of course, like, having a professional VAR and whatever is a bit more complicated. So, like, what I would propose is just maybe having assistant ref, like, recording with your cell phone. You can go back. This is just me having ideas. And then another proposal would be, like, to have workshops that immerse us into understanding other players have other needs. This might be a bit too much, but again, I don't discard it. And rule sets give us the possibility of facing each other in something closer to like equal conditions of games. And yeah, what Bernard was talking or saying yesterday as well, like reffing should definitely be done in pickups as well. Like don't get your guard down. Like you should be all working on knowing those rule sets, the safety issues, the safety matters, and da 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 da. Okay. I've gone like.
I think we do have time for the activity thanks to your efforts. So just could you re-explain this last little activity for the groups before we break up?
Like the tools. Which one? The tool.
This last the
tools. So like if we could come up with other tools, that one. That one?
Is that the activity, the last activity that we were missing otherwise?
Yeah, I mean there are like two others, but I think that would be like the best. Like to come up with proposals of tools to also make sure that we can apply the rules, why they're safe, and da 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 da.
Very good. I think that merits a little breaking conversation to discuss not just the physical tools, but the metaphysical tools that we need to employ to help with these issues. Is that prompt clear for everyone? The tools of the referee, not just physical, but also the emotional tools that need to be used in our clubs, in our communities to treat arbitration appropriately.
To make the game and the sport like a safe space, pretty much.
That's right. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys another 3 minutes for that discussion. We'll make a final point, and I'm going to make a very quick discussion before Alejandro takes over. So two minutes, guys. 2 minutes, guys. 2 minutes.
Okay. We didn't understand anything. Mais pour
somewhere where you can go and
Growing up. Don't follow. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Just like being a general asshole. We didn't have the case, but some people are talking about it.
Avoir un rapport vachement les gens peuvent pédaler fort
Alright, everyone. That's it for time. We're gonna bring it back to the table and share.
Doing the same thing, and that will evolve the whole game for the rest of the
Okay, so again, we're gonna do skiing. Annelies and what were you, the unsportive?
Yeah, that's not is that relevant? No.
No, I mean like the name of your team. Yeah, it's on sports, whatever.
Yeah. We didn't have like too much time to have like a clear conclusion, but in the last 5 seconds, we came up with this with the word of having a like standard, and we're like thinking like having a standard tools or a standard basic, of course, like a visual code. And basic tools like the flag that Tristan mentioned that we have in Valencia, or having just I don't know, like a pink high vis vest or whatever, like whatever it is, like have a standard, and we all use it in all the tournaments, and having that could help to create a proper refereeing system, and which could be translated into fairness and fairness and a better refereeing system overall.
Referee caps.
Like making the space safer because referees have the conditions to
and especially in all the tournaments.
So standardize the whole thing.
Yeah, if you go to the tournament in Montpellier, they have this yellow and gray flags. Yellow if it's goal, and you have to adapt to that if you are the corner ref. And the main ref says, "Nah, I don't understand that because at Valencia I use green and red, so that's confusing. Don't use that. So raise your hand to this." Then the next refereeing team comes, so it's not standard.
Okay.
But that's also right now it's like totally up to the person who's refereeing, and maybe up to the person who's organizing a tournament, which often they just put it back to the actual person who's refereeing to have all the standards and ideas. So So usually one person ends up reffing the game alone. If it's good, he has an assistant ref, and at the end of the tournament, maybe some goal refs. So, but it would be pretty cool if we could make, like, I don't know if we have time for this now, but like just to make a list. If you're a tournament organizer, this is your list which you should provide for referee. Which is should maybe not too extensive, but give them a whistle, maybe a Corona whistle, flags or whatever. But like you need to this.
Okay, so we definitely have to like standardize the
and have
equipment,
have like a clear list of very basic tools that you need and share it to the tournament organizers. The bike polo community is pretty small enough so that we know all each other and we can share the basic list.
Yeah, we need it in the Euro.
Or database, or Google Drive, I don't know, whatever we prefer.
Yeah, so just to get out of the situation that it's like the person who accidentally gets to ref a game is whole responsible for everything. So we could get it to make the tournament organizer like to get into responsibility to providing something for
the standard.
Yeah. And,
okay.
And for them, it's for tournament easy. If you have a list for tournament organizer, do this.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's something you just do and then just
Right. Great. Wrote it down. Okay. Next team.
Well, as a newbie, it's known for every ancient player that these tournaments are high intensity level, or the other is more newbie friendly. And what about a chart or a scale? I don't know, color, high intensity. Just to call more clearly, these tournaments, be ready to break your back or neck to win. It's high intensity for A level players, and these other tournaments will be more newbie friendly. Maybe be more clear about what kind of game will be played on this or these tournaments.
Okay, got it. So scale of tournament intensity levels. Great. Yes, fantastic. Yes?
I just thought to add on this, it would be a good opportunity for reffing as well, to say like what the skill of reffing you need, or maybe also open for newbies to learn reffing.
So like within the tool list for refs, you mean? Or within this?
Yeah, that's the coloring.
Okay, can you say it again, please?
Like you state the level of game, but also the skill of reffing needed for this tournament. If it's open for newbies to ref or not.
Great. Okay, ciao. Thank you.
We also talk about different tools. We need tools before the tourney and the games, like kits of reffing, like maybe simplifying the rule set to give it to newbies, reffing at the pickups. I think it's also tools to have better reffing. And there is also tools during the games, like the VAR, like maybe videos of fouls, database. You don't know if it's handlebar topping, you can watch quickly some video.
So to make categories of these
maybe
infractions?
Something easy to find in the rule set, the thing you want to watch and...
Well, that would be amazing. Like having a quick, like that video that she made. The example of this foul.
This is the foul.
Quick video of that.
This is the foul. And maybe it's amazing. Before
We
to learn the
we
foul.
had talked about this at some point, like a year ago, with Benji and a little bit with Jason, as to make this But there's so much archive that we shouldn't we wouldn't even need to make new videos. We would just have to go back and look.
Like that. I think we need to use Poloverse more to make database Rave. You can find the toolkits, you can find the rule set, you can find videos, you can find
Okay. Great. Thank you. Sorry for cutting you. Next team.
So we understood the question. What tools do we have to ref better? So the answer would be, we promote and during our pickups also like Flinter nights or also newbie nights, where people come. Why not have like a ref night where the reffing is focused, like Flinter or other focus topics. And so here we could maybe have half an hour discussing maybe a certain rule, or have more promoting the reffing and have that also as something special. And then use the games afterwards where we really focus on reffing, because what I don't really see is that we ref all the pickups, because it's really hard to get that into your community. But you could start in having a night.
That's great.
Having this reffing night, and then maybe it comes as you go along that people ref more the pickups.
I love that. Great. Okay, next team.
Yeah, we were talking about like the first thing that makes it more equalized and more predictable at tournaments would be like having the little talk in front of the game with the referee and the captains and the corner refs and everybody, so everybody is on the same page and knows how the game will go. And we were also thinking about like a bit more broad from an inclusivity perspectives, not only in tournaments. I think it starts like in the city where you play at the pickups. And we were talking about, we didn't really have a solution or a conclusion, but we were thinking about like, what if there is a problematic person in your club? Like, can you throw people out your club? Some clubs cannot do it because they only have 6 players.
They still can do.
They still can do, but then they cannot play anymore. Or like in general, like I think there is a little like for me personally at least, there is mixed feelings about throwing someone out, even if I have a personal problem with them, or if I think the person is not. But yeah, so we were talking about that, not really having a conclusion. And another thing that just came to my mind is in Berlin we have a code of conduct for the Polo club. That's a very new thing, still kind of in its baby shoes. But you can find it on Poloverse. There's a thread, and I think Berlin Polo would love to see some engagement on that, some feedback, maybe some clubs adopted.
Yeah, we had it in Marseille and we had it in Bordeaux. So
that's great.
Like you're supposed to
code of
engage
conduct
into anti-discrimination.
Right. And I would even throw within that code of conduct, so how to proceed, right? Like, what's this called? Like we've been talking about this in Spain as well. I think Valencia.
Conflict resolution in those
Conflict
cases?
resolution.
Did I say revolution?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Resolution. So the word escapes my mind. There's a word for this. I forgot the word. Sorry, guys.
Values?
No, so a protocol. That's what I was looking for. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that can go within like code of conduct. All right.
One more thing, just to insist. What I felt at the beginning of the game, when the ref only talks to the captain, for me doesn't help the rest of the team, because the captain does always. Maybe he shares the information, but not always. I thought it was really good at the place that we had, that everybody was around the ref. So everybody's on the same page. And maybe, I do high stick, for example, and if the ref in front of everybody told me, Lucas, beware your high stick, and you beware like of T-bones you did in the last match, maybe we make you responsible, or like you're okay, so everybody you have to wear and play safe. And then you start, and it's a good blank page. It's just an open idea.
Okay. All right, and last team.
En français,
Oui.
on pensait à un outil, ça serait d'abaisser les ratios des vélos pour réduire la vitesse.
En tout cas, de les brider à un 6 max ou un 7, je sais pas.
Parce que en fait, la force des jambes, elle n'est pas équitable entre les gens. Mais par contre, on peut pas mouliner à l'infini, quoi. On va dire. On peut forcer. Il y a des gens qui peuvent plus forcer que d'autres, mais des gens qui peuvent pas mouliner.
Pour éviter les vitesses trop hautes, hein, des fois où c'est un peu chaud.
Et donc ralentir le jeu.
Ralentir le jeu si vraiment donc les accidents les plus importants en fait, sont liés à des chocs de vitesse.
Ralentir la vitesse des vélos, mais est-ce que ça ralentirait le jeu en lui-même à essayer? Peut-être pas, mais
je vois en pédale plate.
Et
It's
the same.
So, just a quick translation of the French for all of our spectators out on the web. This is a very interesting proposition. Is what kind of rules about the equipment need to be revised that might improve the sport? Do we need to imply that a specific range of ratios is acceptable for your bicycle, or do you want to maybe we want the sport to be flat pedals only? These kinds of experiments can take place in events. Sometimes the occasional flat pedal tournament will appear, and and everybody has to be in flats. And you know what? Those tournaments are very novel and very exciting.
Yeah.
So it's cool to take these ideas and practice it.
It's happened in Lyon.
They had a beautiful flat pedal tournament.
Everybody loved it.
It was great. Maybe a tournament everybody has to play with their offhand. Oh, that's probably not. One more remark from Ben, and then we'll give Trini a last closing statement, and then I'll take over. Okay, go ahead.
Après, je sais pas, peut-être qu'on en a parlé, j'ai pas compris, j'ai pas entendu. Mais au niveau de la grille aussi, c'est un truc, il n'y a pas forcément de normes par rapport à ça, et c'est à l'appréciation du gars qui veut la mettre ou pas, là. Est-ce qu'on doit vraiment l'obliger? Est-ce qu'on ne doit pas l'obliger? Enfin, j'ai pas trop de positionnement sur ça, mais en tout cas, ça fait partie, je pense, des grandes...
The question of safety equipment and including, I mean, we want the sport to be accessible but safe, and the debate of whether or not face cages should be mandatory or if we should change the way safety equipment donned by our players should happen in the rule set is also a thing that we want to, take into mind. This conversation's been online for many years, and as the sport evolves, we'll get closer and closer to an answer. We've got a lot of people that like to look good, and they wear a mouth guard to protect their teeth and have clear vision. Other players are very armored to the teeth. It's part of the DIY spirit of the sport that we leave these rules pretty lax. But as the sport becomes more intense and more professionalized, we will have to revisit these rules.
All right. So, like, the last thing I would say is, again, I'm all in for, like, promoting safe spaces for, like, whatever intersection we can find within the sport, whether it's, like, gender, whether it's health, whether it's, I don't know, parenthood. I don't know. Like, we have a lot of intersections within, like, the safety matters of the sport. And I guess, thank you for your time and for willing to participate.
Thank you, Trini.
Okay, everyone. I'm going to crush this presentation on fouls very quickly. The first thing I wanted to mention is that the word foul is something we kind of do towards other people. It's a verb and a noun. But we have other words in our rule set. And understanding the rule set means, in part, mobilizing the vocabulary that has been very carefully chosen by these technical writings so that we can understand the rules better. What do I mean? I mean that we have not fouls, but infractions. Let's take a look at the list of infractions. I need my slides up, please. That's on this slide.
Do you have time for 5-minute break or not?
I'm afraid not.
All right.
Okay. Infractions. Fouls. Let's talk about fouls. The rules on fouls are very well written. They're very technically accurate and carefully done. They're very well done. Let's take a look at them. Next slide. Bam. Those are infractions. We can reduce this. Case in point, there are laws in here like you're not allowed to wipe your boogers on the adversary. I'll give you another example. Kicking. The kicking infraction is when you kick someone. And it's interesting that when you kick someone, it's a minor penalty automatically. What is a minor penalty? Okay, well, we're not going to study each one of these rules. But let's give you an example of how these rules tie together with another aspect, and that's the penalty. How the referee penalizes the infraction. You have infractions, the things you're not allowed to do, and the penalties are what happens when you do those infractions. More interesting than memorizing the infractions is understanding the penalties, how to react to different kinds of infractions and their severity. So could you bring back up the rule set for me, please? Very good. This is wonderful. Thank you so much, Annalise. And we're going to do a quick word search. Can we do a word search for the word minor? Okay? Minor. We're going to look for the word minor and see where it appears in the rule set.
Control F.
There you go.
You see minor up,
Right there.
and we hit enter. Okay, let's scroll up a little bit. We have the word minor penalty here, and it's in an infraction. Scroll up a little bit for me, please, Annalise, so we can see the 6.1.1.1. Okay, it's a delay of game infraction. So this is unsporting kind of behavior. Players are preventing the restart of play, maybe tactically or otherwise. And we have this word minor penalty. That means as a referee, you need to respond to this with a minor penalty. Let's hit enter again. Let's see what the next one is. Okay, let's scroll up. Unsporting behavior will result in either minor or major. All of these minor and majors are appearing before what the definition of minor and major are. Let's look at another one. Subsequent violations will result in a minor penalty regardless of which player on the team commits the infraction. Who could guess what law that is without scrolling up? And you can bring it back to our slides. So, subsequent, yes, it's the crease. Tristan, can you elaborate? What is this rule telling us?
It's not him, it's a crease.
You can't stay more than 3 seconds in a crease zone.
You can't stay more than 3 seconds in the crease unless you are the goalie. Goalies have special rights, and a referee needs to understand those special rights, especially the fact that the goalie is in danger, is helpless, and there's a big metal thing behind him. So if people crash into him, we want referees to react to that with strong penalties. But let's talk about the crease. Concerning the crease foul. The first crease foul is just a ball turnover. That's the most basic kind of penalty for this infraction. But if you do it again, it's going to be a minor right away. So, these kinds of rules are scattered throughout the infractions. When you want to study the rules, try to do it like this. Try to look for the rules that have these kind of distinguishing factors. Yes?
There's 2 people in the crease for more than, 2 seconds?
3
seconds, whatever. The other team takes a shot and it's no goal. I issue a minor penalty. To who?
Okay. Issue it.
Which one of the 2 people?
Your discretion or the team captain.
Okay.
Okay. This is a crease foul when there's a clear advantage to score, right? And therefore, a minor penalty. Clear advantage to score is going to be an important thing for us to revisit. So, how do we handle these kinds of, I prefer to take a foul than a goal? This is a different kind of remark. There are incidents where the idea of assign a minor penalty for this infraction. It appears because it was understood to be a tactical foul that needed to be more severe in order to balance the sport. So the creators of our rules identified that we don't want people to foul on purpose because they prefer the sanction to the goal. And they have weighted some of these infractions to accommodate for that. So, to say this in French, dans les règles, il y a certaines infractions pour lesquelles les créateurs ont mis une penalty plus sévère pour dissuader les joueurs de engager dans des fautes tactiques. Okay? c'est intéressant de les trouver. Look for them in your rule set. Do a word search for minor and major penalties and find the infractions that have these kinds of special extra words in them. Okay? They're a little different from all of the others, but I will get back to that. Next slide, let's talk about it. Okay, let's look at the penalties. Let's study the pyramid. This is the way our penalty system has been devised. 99, and I want to say really 99.9 of the fouls I've ever called, I have given a ball turnover penalty. That means the whistle is blown, ball is stopped, the team against which the infraction was committed will receive the ball and play will continue. Okay? What's the next step up? What is a minor foul? Can anybody tell me what a minor foul is?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. So does that mean just this? Or does that mean this and this?
What do you mean?
Do they get the ball turnover and 30 seconds penalty, or is it just a 30 seconds penalty?
I'd say
It's both. And that's true for the whole way up the pyramid. Okay? So, ball turnover, basic. A minor penalty, this is a vocabulary you want to understand, that means 30 seconds and a ball turnover. When do we apply it? Finally, major fouls. Major infractions. What does that mean?
1 minute.
1 minute. 1 minute. In general, with these fouls, suppose you're serving your 1 minute for a major infraction because you T-boned the goalie. And the opposing team scores on your team while you are serving your 1 minute, right? Then the major penalty ends at that point. The penalty of 1 minute could be only 20 seconds if the opposing team scores, okay? And it's the same for the minor fouls. You take somebody and give them 30 seconds while they're waiting for 30 seconds and they're watching their players get smashed and finally the goal happens, then they don't have to wait 30 seconds anymore. That was my understanding of the rules. There's a caveat. When rules are severe enough, that time can even persist. And over here, we've got player misconduct, which is kind of even more severe. It's the very top of the pyramid, and it's when all of these things have happened, and it continues, and we need to start ejecting players from the game. Yes, remark.
When you have a player disadvantage, like a minor foul, for example, and your own team scores, you still stay outside for the rest of your time.
Wonderful distinction. You can't own goal yourself to get your player back. If you score on yourself, you're still serving your penalty.
No, but it also,
right?
like, if you score a goal, not an own goal, like if your team scores a goal,
yes,
they only have 2 players, you're outside, but you still have to serve till the end of the 30 seconds, right?
My understanding of the minor fouls rule is that after the goal is awarded, then that penalty is now washed away.
Even whose team scored?
No, did I misunderstand the rules? Can we have some clarification?
Major penalty is 1 minute and whatever. 1 minute you're out. Even if your opponent team in superiority scores 3 goals, you're out for 1 minute completely.
Okay.
It's written.
I'm looking it up in the rules.
Thank you guys. This is what we need. When I was reading it, I must have gotten confused, or maybe I'm crossing my hairs with another type of infraction where there's the caveat that this major penalty ends at the end of, etc., etc. For example, there's a bit difference between getting a minor penalty because it's your 3rd foul versus getting a minor penalty because you've done something egregious. Yes?
Okay, in the minor penalty it says the player advantage ends if the team on advantage scores. So I read that as if you made a foul, you're out, and your team that are only 2 score, you still have.
Oh, okay. Now I understand.
If your opponents score,
yes. Okay, that is the rules. Thank you. That's the clarification.
Not only if your opponent.
The player advantage ends if the team on advantage scores.
Player advantage means it's 2v3. Sorry.
If you are 2 on goals and you score, you stay 2 on goals. If the opposite score, if you are 2, the 3rd player come back.
And on the major,
there is
Ça, c'est pas pour les majors.
Can you say the section?
On the major advantage.
Yes, let's hear the major.
The major advantage says the player advantage continues for the duration of the penalty regardless of team scoring.
Very good.
You get a minute, you get a minute.
Very good. You get a minute, you get a minute. You get a minute, you get a minute. That's an easy verbal remembrance. Thank you for that. You give a minute, you get a minute. Yes.
Until the penalty comes from personal procedure. So my first, my two, my third fall, I get a minor, and my fourth fall, I get a major. And if it's that way, I go to the major penalty. So if the opponent team scores, it's complicated. Yeah. So
Okay, very good. So this is the point. Okay. I'm so glad I didn't mix it up in my head. Let's do a quick recap. Okay.
Yes.
You can get a major penalty because you've committed three basic penalties that were turnover, or two basic penalties that was a turnover, a third minor penalty because you had these two, and then a fourth major penalty. And this penalty is not as bad as a major penalty that you get d'office. So what you want to know is, what are the major penalties? I'm not going to tell you. Go find them. This is your kind of homework assignment. Okay, so the next page on this presentation, we got a nice tachometer here. Yeah, it's telling you your RPMs, 0 to 80. This is a tool a referee needs. No, I'm kidding. This is just a visual aid to explain a point that all of the infractions, just about all of the infractions, can exist on a spectrum of severity. What I'm trying to say is, any infraction could be so small that you ignore it entirely during the play of game. They happen all the time. A little mallet touches a little bike. A little bike touches a little bike. A little mallet gets a little bit higher than the handlebar, but it's not an issue. Since we have a sport that's difficult to remain fluid, we have a rainbow of severity that allows us to make judgment calls as referees to decide what kind of penalty is appropriate. Can we return back to the previous slide on the penalties? So, any kind of infraction can land anywhere in this penalty, in these different penalties. And your job is going to, as a referee, is to decide what is appropriate action. Okay? Today, the way reffing is done at our tournaments, we have this spectrum of severity that enters the heads of all of our referees. As reffing becomes more tight, and as the rules subtract the words that aren't needed and become more comprehensible, then our arbitration won't need to be so much on a spectrum, and it will be more automatic, like you would see a professional soccer player or soccer referee execute a sport. We're not there yet today. Today, we want to take into account that a mallet under the wheel could be as simple as a ball turnover or not even called, given the circumstances, because maybe you want to promote fluidity. Or it could be a mallet under the wheel that is so egregious and excessive that that player needs to be ejected from the game. So, as a referee, you're invited to figure out where these different laws and penalties need to be applied to infractions. And we're going to return to the basic idea that safety is a priority. Identify actions and infractions that are safety-oriented and begin to mobilize the pay scale of punishments that we can accord players. Me as a referee, I have not done this well. I have not issued minor fouls when they were appropriate because, I don't know, I'm a nice guy. I'm scared to impact the game so much with these kinds of big calls. But it's a weak point of mine. I need to work on it. I need to be better at it. Yes?
But I think it's a general thing throughout the whole community that every ref needs to call more minor penalties and more. I've never seen a major penalty being called in the game, but I think there would have been, like looking back, reading the rules now, looking back at the games that I've seen, I think there would have been more than enough opportunities.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And I can remark that I have seen a very slow but steady incline of the appearance of the 30-second minor penalty. A quick anecdote. We had one of our wonderful players and members of the community, Remy, who was reffing a very tough game in Montpellier in the rainy weather when an attacking team, it was Choco and his team, was playing against Momo and his team, and one of the players on Momo's side who was defending was down, but, dabbed, but veered in front and through the crease when Choco was taking his shot. And the ball rebounded off of this player who was down. So, what do we do? Do we accord a goal? No, Remy didn't give a goal. Why not? Momo was in the goal behind this down player, ready to react to the shot. So it's not a but d'office, like easy, obvious goal would have happened. Who knows? Momo's a pretty good goalie. Okay, so he might have blocked it. But we can't just do a simple ball turnover as your only penalty for that kind of infraction because, Choco takes a good shot. It's a good pop-in shot that is on frame. So what did Remy do? He mobilized a minor penalty. Even though that player who was dabbed and just trying to get out of the way made a simple decision to get out of the way in the wrong direction, there still needs appropriate action in order to maintain fairness in this golden goal situation that Remy was reffing. He used the minor foul to balance and to appropriate for that particular situation. If you familiarize yourself with major, minor, and ball turnover and player misconduct, and you organize in a cloud, a bubble cloud of the kinds of infractions that merit more direct action and less action about the severity, then you will start to ref more like, say, Mateen, who is a machine. He knows every rule, he knows every infraction, and he does not use, can we scroll back to that other direction? Mateen does not use the tachometer as so much. I'm a big tachometer guy. It's like, it's a little thing, keep going. Not Mateen, he knows the rule, he's confident in applying it, he knows the penalties, he mobilizes them equally and constantly and very well. His arbitration is excellent, okay? The better you get at understanding those rules, the less judgment calls you have to make and more reactive calls you have to make. One remark, and then we're going to get a cigarette break, and then Alejandro is going to present for us. Yes?
So fast, on that example you just taught, if the goalie takes the ball, you put the fault directly, but if the other, you can say advantage and then minor fault.
So when the ball was shot, the ball was recuperated by the defending team from memory. I don't quite remember. And Remy just blew the whistle at that time.
But you can say advantage and then minor or major fault.
Yeah, you don't. When you say advantage,
when the player should be out.
When you say advantage, that minor penalty does not take into effect until the ball has been moved out of play. It's never in live play that you can take a player and say, sit here for 30 seconds. Okay. You only can issue minor, major, any penalty can be issued once you've stopped play. You stop play, now I issue penalties, now I start play. Never are you going to issue penalties of any kind when the ball is in play. Mechanically, you must stop play to issue.
And maybe if, like Choco, the ball reflected, you just take the ball back, shoot and score. You can avoid a goal and then a minor penalty. So
yeah. Because basically it would have been advantage, but you were just about to call it.
Yes. So you can record a goal and minority.
So could you call advantage if he gets possession of the ball and then if they lose his possession?
So yes, you can. There's a bunch of thought experiments we can consider, right? But this is going to be work for you on your own around the courts today as we continue to ref the single limb. What's next is a short break while we get Alejandro up for the final presentation. We're going to be a little late for lunch, so let's just take a 5-10 minute, organize your thoughts. Thank you. I know the fouls presentation was short, But there's too much material really for us to address it all. Take this
We need a whole week of discussion about
the whole week
about that.
I'm gonna ask for holidays.
It's a holiday request for sure. With all players, like. Maybe a tool is like we last year. At the beginning of the tourney, after the meeting, every player is like,
I'm
sure think we need to
I
play
feel like that type of meeting, post events meeting, or
5-10 minutes.
pre-event meeting, but
with the
normal
coffee
classes, really.
No, we don't have time.
Yeah.
At 7 we are putting like too much
Exactly.
things. We don't
Yeah,
have time.
too much things.
We have time, but
Maybe
we don't
the only thing
it's
involved is
organization.
like Friday night.
Yeah,
No, it's in organization. If you have people who can bring you breakfast and one ref team, I think we need like a committee who can organize it. You have some kids, you have
Maybe here are the stuff that we did.
even for the speech, you have to say that. Like we try to do with the match meeting with the players and the ref team. You can say, okay, you are the ref. Now for the tourney, you can score the wheel and say careful as you make fouls and before the tourney and like a global one. Saying everybody will ref. Prepare when you're refing your team, and we do this way.
And at the end of the tournament, you elect a tournament of the ref. Just to say there is refs and trying to get better.
Yeah.
Just to
it should be like an obligation, like when you don't need an MVP, but every ref.
And VR most valuable, right? And VR.
And for that, you can just use the four things. When you play, just as a captain, when you play, you feel safe.
Yeah.
Did you play one?
If it's fair.
And the third one was
fluid.
Yeah, and was it fluid? So you don't as a captain, what's the word good? Yeah, it's just 3 points.
Commence à kiffer la musique.
And you give notes. One, two, three.
You kiff la
It
musique.
can be safe, but not sweet. Like
you can say 3 and
don't
say
say
2.
because it's really safety, but no quality. So you can say excellent on one
part of the ref and part of the team.
Si le terrain il est praticable. Par exemple, tu vois, par la surface, tu veux dire. Ouais, mais par exemple, tu vois, genre, tu vois, avec Montpellier, avec la pluie, le terrain était ultra comme ça. Ouais. Et du coup, ça devient quelque chose de dangereux.
Overreacting things, they are learning and we need generations of
and even if you play 10 tourneys week after week, it's cool to have the same speech before every tourney.
It's because it's always different. No matter if you're playing with the same team, with the same bike, everything is going to change.
Every tourney.
He's gonna join the video conference.
I mean, yeah.
How is he? Oh, on the Google Meets. Nice. That's so cool. Where's the loudspeaker?
The
TV?
this is good.
Oh, that was. Ah, la TV. Ball.
Yeah, I think so. Allez! Allô, allô? Ouf. Attends, c'est bug. Ah, T'es mute. Ah, non. Merde. Merde. Ça marche pas. La 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 la. Là, j'entends des sons quand tu te branches et tout, là. Non. Sinon, tu refresh ta page Google Meet. Ouais. T'as vu qu'en bas, en bas de la page Google Meet, il y a les paramètres micro et vidéo. Ouais, t'es dessus.
C'est trop bien. Mais c'est vrai qu'il est. D'accord.
Ouais.
Je suis d'accord avec toi.
Tiens, regarde ça. J'ai amené un petit show and tell. C'est mes badges d'arbitre quand j'étais certifié aux États-Unis.
Soccer.
Je commençais à 19 ans, tu vois.
Soccer.
Ouais. Ça serait pas mal d'avoir un peu de swag comme ça dans notre sport quand même. Hein.
MLS? Ouais, c'est cool. Hein. Tu sais, tous les ans, tu fais un petit apéro, et puis tu repars avec un badge.
Ouais.
C'est vraiment ça. Trop bien. Alors, ça fonctionne?
En fait, il a des problèmes de micro, donc.
Aïe aïe aïe. On va attendre un peu là.
Il arrive.
C'est lui avec le problème de micro ou c'est toi?
Non, c'est lui.
Oh, this is gonna be awesome.
Come
join us. Just while we're waiting on some technical support, I brought some show and tell of some things that we might want to introduce to our
What is this?
Our community, our sports. These were my referee badges back when I was in high school and college.
Yeah. Let me see.
For every year that you were a certified referee, you were issued a new badge that indicated that your certification was up to date for the appropriate year.
You can do better.
You can do better.
Yes, and actually, the referees, they had a scotch, and they would just put on the new badge with the right year, and you just collect them. And of course, there were guys that had like 10 years of badges just like strapped onto their backpack, and like, whoa. Big referee, repping college matches.
Hello.
Oh yeah.
Hola. Okay, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yahoo, I can barely hear you. Give me a second. Okay. Let me check. Let's go.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us? Oh no.
He's muted. He's muted.
Yeah,
He's muted.
You're muted.
No, not me.
Yeah.
There you go. Presentation. Presentation.
Yes. Yes. Oh, puppy.
I'm not sure I can see you though.
See.
We can see. Very good. Very good. Green light.
Hola.
Hola.
Okay, I'm not sure I can. What do you see? Do you see everything? Do you see my whole screen or do you see just the presentation?
We see the whole screen, including.
No, the presentation only. The presentation only.
You see the presentation only?
Yes. Like without being presented, but the presentation. We don't see your other tabs.
No full screen. No full screen.
We're not seeing like your other incognito things.
No, but I want to put it full screen.
Oh, on the side?
For some reason, it won't let you launch the slideshow. That's curious.
F5?
F5?
Let me just check 1 second.
F5 is full screen in PowerPoint. Sí, es el de Google.
Okay.
Now you are in full screen.
So handsome.
View. Share screen.
Si tienes PowerPoint descargado, descárgatelo.
No, Google.
Betsy.
Slido? I use Slido.
You've never heard of Betsy?
A ver. Compartir.
Yeah, I use Slido.
It works.
Got it.
Là, ça va marcher.
Ouais, ça va marcher.
Excellent.
IT department.
Alright, everyone. Nice to see you. Or no, I don't see you, but it's okay. Okay, so a little bit of what I want to talk about is something that is not necessarily written, but needs to be discussed, which is game management, right? Game management is basically how you approach a game as a ref. You know, knowing the rules, watching a bunch of actions, it doesn't necessarily make for a great ref. There are certain aspects that need to be practiced. There are certain aspects that you need to think about when you're doing it. And so this presentation is basically about that, right? And so game management, I divided into three aspects, basically, which is match management, which is the mechanics of the game. So that includes how your equipment, who you ref with, how familiar you are with the tools that you have, and how the game progresses, right? How you keep the rhythm of the game, but in terms of the infrastructure and all that, right? You have the player management, which is the flow of the game, the actions of the game, what happens in the game, and how you deal with the players, and how you interpret the rules, and all that. And then finally, the crowd management, right? Which is the ambience of the game, which is basically you keeping your head down and how you flow on, or how you control the game and not get necessarily influenced by what's going on around, right? So that aspect to it is important. All right, so let's keep it going. The match management, right? So the mechanics of the game. In this, I've been dividing the things into threes. So basically, what I mean by give me just 1 second, I'm going over there. Okay. So the mechanics of the game, right? So yeah, knowing the rules is not necessarily a guarantee for a good ref. There are very important things to manage. So you have to make sure that you work on your setup, right? Bernie has said it time and time again. Buy your own whistle, buy your own timer. Ideally, a good ref would have their own tools. If you can't find that, it's fine. I mean, not all timers are super complicated to work. But yeah, it's something that you need to be familiar with, you know, especially because there are hand signals. There's a certain workflow that goes into a match. And so ideally, if you have your own tools, you're already familiar, you don't have to think about that. As per Romanet, I usually give out whistles. If you see me in a tournament, don't ask me for one, I'll probably give you one for free. Timers, I've also given some timers to certain tournaments, but I know their communities usually buy their own. And so if you're going to be refereeing your local tournament, be familiar with it, how you set it up. I'd much rather have a timer that counts back than just a timer that goes up, because that way I know how much time is left. I don't have to do mental calculations. And so yeah, same thing with the reffing sheets. I put a link in this, but they are on the Eurobike Polo website. The reffing sheets that I made at some point and that I shared. You can take them, modify them, or whatever you can do with them as you please. But make sure that you know how to work them, or make your own tools as to how you're going to work with them. and so you're comfortable. It basically frees your mind of superfluous things that if it's the first time that you're going to do it, you're not necessarily comfortable, or you have to think about it, or you have to look away from the game to think about, where do I have to write this, or where do I have to write that, or how do I write this or that? And so you might miss an action, and that always happens the second that you take your eyes off the game, something happens, and it's always your fault. And so, yeah, for the referee setup, it's important. Like I said, it's very, very basic, but make sure that you know your tools. Your workspace, where you're going to be reffing, try to make yourself a nice space. You know, place yourself. If you prefer to be sitting down, sit down comfortably. If you prefer to be standing up because it gives you a perfect, better view, that's also good. Whatever happens, whatever works best for you, but make sure that you are comfortable in your workspace, right? I much rather personally prefer to ref standing up than sitting down, because for some reason my brain, as soon as I sit down, it winds down, and so I don't feel that I am as active. Whereas when I'm standing up, I usually think that I'm a little bit more aware. I don't know why. Everybody's different in that sense, but make sure that you set yourself up properly and that you create an environment around you that is nice. Organize your tools. For me personally, I like having my timer on my left hand. I like having my whistle on my right hand. I like to clip the pen on the reffing sheets, so I always have it ready. But that's my tool. You organize and you clear your space as you want. Make sure that you have the balls. Make sure that you have things around you the way that you like them. But it's your responsibility, right? And also remove distractions, because usually the best place to watch a match is the reffing stand. And so take people away. Don't hesitate to tell them, please give me some room. Go away. Don't talk to me. Make your own little world in that in the reffing stand. If you're comfortable with people being around you, then that's your thing, right? I have a one-channel mind, and so for me it's very important that I'm as focused as I can, because I'm easily distracted. And so, yeah, your reffing team. For the management of the game, having people that you like, having people that you know in your team usually makes for better reffing. You know who you like reffing, you know who you like, and so ideally, try to work with those people. I think it's important that that refs communicate and that you build a little bit of a circle around you in terms of people that can help you, because it shouldn't be a one-person job. Usually there's at least 4 jobs that needs to be done in a match, being the main ref, the assistant ref, and the goal refs. And so if there's people that you like, it's easier to get that going. For communication, right? It's very important that you know how they sign something, how they react, their facial expressions, how the way that they signal. Some people are they raise their hand and they move a lot, right? And so it's easy to spot them. Some people are a little bit more discreet, but if you know how your goal ref signals or how your assistant works, it makes for a better reffing experience, right? And so creating this rapport with the people is very important, right? It's something that you don't necessarily. It's like when you play with a team, right? There's people that instantly clicks and it's automatic. Some people need a little bit of work, and so try to get that going. Sometimes when you ref, you don't necessarily ref one match. You ref maybe a couple or more matches. And so try to work also with the people that you have around. Try to tell them how you like things, right? Don't hesitate to talk to your assistant. Don't hesitate to tell them, look for the off ball. I look right on the joust. I look right. You look left. Same thing with the ball refs. Be proactive in that sense, right? And so the mechanics of the game can make or break a game, because a match that is clumsy, that doesn't really flow, that you have to wait for the refs to get ready, that the scorekeeping, you know, they forget about it, or they take a long time to when they're doing timeouts, they don't necessarily count them, and all of that can make for a lesser experience, right? And so the match, just by the mere mechanics of it, can be a little bit less than it should be. And so, yeah, it's an important part of the game. You know, you have to be ready, and there's certain actions that you have to practice in that sense. And so, it's something that you're not going to see it written on the rule set, but nonetheless, it's something that you need to be aware, right? And so, this is where it gets a little bit more tricky. The player management. This is how the game is played, the actions, you know, the fouls, how it goes, the attitudes on the game, how do you keep a competitive balance, and so yeah. For example, on the management, I heard Bernie talk about this a little bit before. The leeway. How much leeway do you give in a game? It's not the same if you're going to be reffing a high-end match or the Euros or the World Final or near Ligue du Soleil, that is an ABC tournament, right? You can have a little bit more. It's up to you to know how much leeway you're going to give. You know, whether you're gonna let something roll and let players self-manage a little bit, do a little bit of fair play, you know, keep things moving, keep things going, or start tightening down and being a little bit more severe on the calls. You have to be aware of how much leeway you're comfortable. You don't necessarily have to be a ref that lets everything play. You can be a very severe player. I know there's certain examples. For example, Martini is usually a ref that doesn't leave a lot of leeway.
De laisser
He
faire.
has to apply the rules very strictly.
Laisser
That's totally fine. That's not necessarily going to be a better or a worse experience. It's just how you are comfortable with it, you personally, and that you have to know.
Le tacomètre, on a parlé.
If you're having less experience or you're having a little bit of you're a little bit less confident, you can base yourself, you know, on the written law, right? And so you can be a little bit more strict. That's not necessarily bad, right? A strict ref is not a bad ref, right? The same as a ref that lets a little bit of things play is not necessarily bad. Just as long as you know what you're doing and you can control the situation, because this is very dynamic, right? So this brings me to my next point, which is the escalation, right? Usually a game is starting to play really nice, everything is going nice, and then there's certain actions, there's certain attitudes, there's certain players might have a history together, and things start getting rough, right? And things go from very friendly to not so friendly. And so you have to be aware on when this happens, and you have to read the signs, right? You have to know what's going on around you. You have to know when the situation of the game changes, because it's very dynamic, right? And so you have to know when you're going to start applying the rules a little bit more, when you have to change your attitude in terms of how you're going to be reffing, right? And this is something you have to do quickly, right? You cannot start going and like, they're starting doing a little T-bone, they're starting doing a little this, let me just check. No, you have to be quick, you know? If you're gonna give some room for interpretation, if you're gonna leave some leeway, you also have to be able to react quickly and change, right? And so you have to be able to react, because this might happen very quickly. And so you have to adapt to the game, right? And at some point, if a match starts turning to shit and everybody starts going crazy, well, you're gonna have to be able to find resources, right? Because the rule set gives you some tools, but it doesn't give you all the answers. And so you have to think about how you're gonna stop that and how you're gonna gain control back from the game, and so they reestablish the competitive advantage, right? And so at some point, if I can give you an example, there was in Euros semi-final in Zurich, I believe. There were two players that started escalating the violence, and they started doing a lot of complaining, and there was a lot of like one foul, and then the other guy would come and do a foul, and the other guy could pay back. And so it started becoming something that you could not whistle necessarily one thing or the other. And so at that point, the match had to be stopped. Both players were told, they were explained what the situation was going, what was going on, that they needed to step back, and that they would get ejected if this continued. Fortunately, in that situation, it did work. And so the players wind down, the teams, the whole tension took a step back, and we could continue playing. And so it was a match that was ended up being a competitive match and not just a shit show, right? And so yeah, this calls for situations that how do you manage this? Because you also have to be, you have to know yourself, right? And you have to deal with your own emotions. And so you have to assert yourself, right? You have to be confident, right? You have to know that you're doing the best job that you can. Even if you make mistakes, that is not a problem. You have to know why you're taking your decisions. It shouldn't be irrational, right? You're trying to do a job, and you have to take decisions based on something. Try to keep focus on what's going on. Try to keep focus on the game, why you're doing something in terms of the competitive balance, right? And also don't hesitate to look out for support from your team. You have an assistant, you have goal refs, and sometimes you might have a head ref, or you might have something that you respect and you know, and you might be able to ask them, take a little time. Take a little time and let them know what's going on. Hey, this is going a little bit above my capabilities, right? Help me out with this. I need to assess a certain situation. But yeah, nobody's above you in terms of the match. If you're the main ref, you are the authority for that match, and so yeah, just try to not get stepped over, right? There's a lot of there's players that are very difficult. There's players that have a lot of ego, and that's something that you're gonna have to deal with. But even then, even the biggest star is not above what the ref says in terms of the authority of the game. And so don't get bullied, basically, right? You stand your ground, you make your decision, and if you think you're making a mistake, well, assess it, right? But nobody is foolproof in that sense. And so the management, it's something that you have to have a little bit of diplomacy, right? Into the flow of the game, and how you deal with the players, how you manage, how do you make them understand that we're here to play, right? And nothing is necessarily personal, right? Because a lot of people will get personal and will think that you're calling something because you don't like them or because you're trying to make a statement. And that, I mean, it could be true, but that's not something that it's not something that is supposed to happen, right? And so in that sense, you have to create some tools as to how you're gonna approach it. Everybody's different. There's people that are very severe, even if they're very, very friendly on the outside of the game. But if that's the tool that you're gonna employ to gain control of your game and manage the players, that's totally fine. I know, for example, Samir is a very severe ref as well in terms of dialogue. When you try to talk to him, you have to make sure that you're the captain, and there's very little back and forth of his focus, outside of his comfort zone, and so he's not very chatty, and he doesn't have a lot of time to discuss. So he will tell you what has been called, and then we move on, and that's totally fine. There are certain people. I remember back in the day, for example, Finn was very diplomatic. He would take the time to talk a little bit with the players and explain certain situations, and that usually de-escalated things, and that was totally fine. He had a charm about himself, and so that is perfectly acceptable as well. It's something you have to know how you're going to approach it. You don't necessarily have to be a dick. You don't necessarily have to be friends. You have to know how you're going to do it yourself, right? And so finally, we come to the crowd management, right? The ambience of the game. This is a very tricky situation because it doesn't necessarily relate to the game, but it does very directly relate to the ref, right? Because what's going on outside of the court can create how do you say an ambience that gets in your mind, and you start making mistakes and you start hesitating on certain calls. Especially if you're watching a game that is an underdog against a very popular team, or it happens sometimes when you have a rookie or something that the crowd goes wild whenever they do something, and they boo and they create they question every single call that you make, and so this is something that you have to deal. So yeah, heckling, how you deal with it. You have the youngest player of the tournament playing, and someone comes in and does anything to that player, everybody's gonna boo, right? And so that shouldn't take you out of the game. Your mind has to be focused on what's going on, regardless of whether it's a very popular player, whether it's someone that is very young or something. You still have to know that you have to ref according to your own principles, according to what you know, according to how you're going to control the game, right? And so try not to focus on the emotions of what's going on, and create your own tools to bring yourself back into the game. I know that for me, if I start drifting away from the situation, I start watching the match instead of reffing the match. It helps me a lot to narrate what's going on. So I do it loudly, and just to get back into the action, right? And so that pass was clean. This check. I start narrating. I start commentating on the match, but to myself, because usually that brings me back to what's going on and analyzing the game instead of like just being a passive spectator. Because you're not there to watch, you're there to participate, right? You're participating as a ref. And so yeah, you need to keep your focus. You need to start getting into the action, and you have to you have to find your happy place, right? You have to focus, you have to concentrate, you have to be able to be in that place where it's not about your emotions. You are trying to be, again, you have to establish this competitive advantage. Everything has to be on a level playing field. And so yeah, you have to be as serene as possible, because if you start thinking about things in an emotional way, when you start saying something or you make a call, and people start heckling, well, that affects you, right? And it might make you hesitate, and that's not necessarily something that you want, right? So we go to, when you make unpopular calls, right? Like I said, you talk to the newbie player comes in and does a crazy T-bone, and you have to give him 30 seconds, or you have to do something that nobody likes, or there's a final, there's something, a very tricky situation, and you have to make an unpopular call, and the crowd is already riled up, especially if they're starting drinking, and there's a little bit of that drunken heckling ambience. I know everybody has lived through it, and you start whistling, and everybody starts going like what, take your time to make your calls. don't hesitate. Be brave. You have to make them. If you have to make the call, nobody likes them. But you have to make the call. Take your time. Talk to people. Go back to your team if you need. And make sure that you're making the right decision. That is not a reaction, but actually but rather a logical decision, right? And so yeah, be brave. In this case, especially when the crowd is against you, you have to know. You have to be brave. I'm sorry, I have no words, right? And that's how it has to go. And then finally, the most important thing about reffing, about the management of the reffing, everybody's gonna make mistakes, right? Nobody is foolproof, right? Every match, you're gonna watch every match of any sport. Nobody's gonna agree 100% with the ref. Most of the time, 50% of the players are gonna be against one of the calls. That's totally normal. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Move on. Accept that you made a mistake and get past it. Don't internalize it, especially during a match, right? You have to move on. Even, I totally missed one call. I totally missed something. I looked away for 1 second and something happened and I don't know what happened. I know that I made a mistake, but I cannot call it. Fine. Move on, right? Try to be impartial, right? Not because you did something, a teammate, you made a mistake on one team, you have to go and give it back to the other. And no, try to stay focused on what's going on, right? Accept that nobody's perfect, right? Even as a player, if you make a pass and you miss it, if you take a shot and you miss it, nobody's gonna call on it, right? Nobody's gonna tell you, no, you shouldn't play anymore because you missed this goal. However, when you're reffing, if you miss a call or you make a wrong call, especially in the viewpoint of view of one of the players, that's always going to happen, right? And they're gonna come and they're gonna tell you should be reffing, and that's not necessarily something that is good. And we have a very toxic relation with refs, not necessarily by Polo, but in general, right? It's always a ref's fault that I lost. But don't take that and don't internalize it. If you want, you can practice reffing a little bit more. You can be a little bit more involved in the reffing or try to get it with somebody. But don't think that because you made a mistake, you shouldn't do it, right? Everybody's gonna make a mistake, and that's totally fine. And so yeah, that's basically what I have to say about the game management. I'm very happy to participate, to have been a part of this. And so yeah, if you have any questions, we can probably talk about this.
Fantastic. I don't know if we can. So, do we have any questions or comments that we would like to share with Alejandro before we break for lunch? Yes.
He said, move on if you make a mistake, but maybe you should put fairness before, in front.
Can you talk a little bit louder?
Yes.
Yes.
Good.
The mic is here.
Come on up to the front. Come up to the front and talk to Alejandro. Yes.
Go under the table. Ciao.
A long travel.
He's coming.
No problem. Hola Alejandro.
Hola.
Has dicho como, well, in English. You said if you make a mistake, you should move on, if nobody noticed, or if the mistake is big and you consider to stop after 20 seconds of the infraction or the action that happened, you can say I'm sorry guys, I missed that, but I think we need to address this problem, this infraction that happened a minute later.
Okay, excellent question. No, I mean move on emotionally.
Okay.
right? So you have to manage your game. If you think that 20 seconds later is something that you have to go back and revise, because obviously it's something that needs to be addressed in the game, if that's how you feel, do it, right? If you think that you're gonna gain control of that game by doing that, that's totally fine. What I meant is, don't take it as I'm fucking up, I'm not doing a good job, I missed that, I'm not doing something good emotionally. Move on emotionally, right? That's it.
Great question. Another question from someone? Yes. Come on up, Rita. This is great fun.
This is good exercise.
Right. We were discussing like also some of the rules and if maybe it could favor the sport and how we would like to have the sport for us to, for example, see rules changing. I don't know, something like should be a shuffle, a goal. So what would you say would be because I think you're also one of the people who drafted the rule set. So what would you see as an appropriate procedure to apply for changing rules?
Okay, so this is a very complicated topic that would probably need a forum all to itself, because it's very difficult at this point. I've been involved in the rule set and in the writing of the rule set or in the development of rule sets for over 12 years maybe. And so every time you open the discussion of what should be included or how should we approach something, everybody has their own opinions. And so it's very difficult to make a clear path on that. I know that, for example, Montpellier at some point they did a tournament or a couple of tournaments where shuffles were allowed as a test. And even though they were not a very popular decision and people complained, they did try it and that was totally valid. I know there's a divided still opinion on whether they should count or not, but having a clear procedure on how do you add a rule to something, it's not something I have an answer, to be honest, because also we have a very diffuse structure in terms of the different committees, not only the European committee, but the committees in general in the world. There's for example, why do we have different rule sets? We have different rule sets because we couldn't manage a conversation where we could have one, right? So for the longest time we had one rule set that was the North American, that was basically the standard for everything else. And we had groups and we had work groups and we had a community around that rule set. However, it would only work in one direction. We couldn't get anything in. Most of the conversations that we would have, they would stay as a conversation, and then at some point, we started working on our own. And I think, to be honest, it's the better rule set. It creates a better game. It's easier, if you can say that, to read, or it's a little bit more structured. But now we have two rule sets. There's no connection between the two working communities in terms of unifying. And so, how do you add something? I don't know. Do you have something that you need to get, that you want to add? Communicate it. At least there's that, right? I know, for example, Benji, he has a lot of opinions. I don't necessarily agree with all of them, but he has some great opinions as well. And so you start getting a conversation, you start talking to people, you start checking. Maybe you do a local tournament, or you're doing your pickups. You start, trying to get that working and see if that actually makes a change. Sometimes rules, to be honest, people suggest things that are too specific. And so it creates, or rather it makes for a rule set that would be 1,000 pages long, which ideally for me, I would like to reduce the number of pages and have more of these workshops going on so that we could have a rule set that could be interpreted better instead of having just details, endless details on what is acceptable and what is not. Or rather a community of refs that can say, this is acceptable, this is not, but in broad terms, right? Yeah, I don't know if that's a better, that's the answer that you wanted, but I don't know if I can give you a better one.
What? Yes, go ahead. Another question. Thank you. That was excellent. Excellent. This is an important subject.
I have a question about toxic players or toxic habits regarding to refs, or like I think it's more about men or like toxic masculinity in the games, and people have experienced it. And when you are not experienced ref, that they complain about your decision, how do you deal with that, or if you have any anecdotes?
Okay. Yeah, that is something that needs to be a little bit of work. I think that we need to address it a little bit as a community. I think it's gotten a lot better. But yeah, there's definitely work to be done. We don't necessarily always have a head ref on tournaments. And that's a figure that should be a little bit more implemented in terms of somebody that can have a little bit of oversight on players and their attitudes. Because yeah, I know exactly what you mean. You know, you're not necessarily very experienced. You play a match, you ref a match that might be a little bit above your skill level, or also the player that is playing doesn't necessarily have a think that they are above your refing skills. Their perception of themselves is higher than what they think of you. And so yeah, there's something that needs to be addressed. As a ref, as a newbie ref, it's very difficult to make any calls on that, because how do you change the perception of someone? However, you're not alone. Most of the times, tournaments, they do have an organizer. You know more or less who the key organizer is, or the more vocal person on that tournament is. And yeah, you might need to stop the game a little bit and ask for help, and call them, you know, and say like, look, this is something that is getting out of hand. This is like very difficult. And that player needs to have a little talk, you know. This is one of the things that I like about quads. You can always exclude that person from that game, and the team still can play. As a community, we need to support each other. However, having said all this, as a ref, you need to have a thick skin. And you need to, you know, you need to let things go. Sometimes people are on a little bit of an adrenaline rush. Some people feel that they're a little bit on edge, and the way that they say things might be a little bit too harsh because of their situation at that point. They might not necessarily mean it that way, but they don't necessarily have the peace of mind to say it. And in the heat of the event, they might come up a little bit, you know, worse than they should have been if they were just calls, you know, they were having a beer with you or whatever. So yeah, as a ref, you don't need to take shit from anybody, but also take into consideration the situation that is going on, right? Don't hesitate to ask for help. Maybe as tournament organizers, we should have a clearly defined a group of head refs that might have to talk to that person and say, listen, bring it down. We might exclude you from next game, or we might exclude you for the duration of the tournament or whatever, right? But yeah, no, excellent. Yeah, we need to work on toxic we need to work on toxic attitudes.
Thank you. More questions? More questions? Yes. A question de Tristan. Oh, what does Tristan have? Okay.
Like I will never be lead or like justified because it depends on
Hello, Papi.
Hola.
Just we Bernie talk about the fouls just before your talk, and we separate like the infraction and the penalties. Right now, rule set mainly writing with infraction and direct penalties. Like for the crease, you take the example of the crease. You make two foul of creases. It's a minor penalty. But what do you think about making a jauge, you know?
A gauge.
Because the same foul could be nothing, just you don't whistle it. Could be just a ball turnover, a minor, maybe a major, or an unsportsman. So, can we include something like this in rule set? Do you talk about this when you make the rule set? Do you decide to don't let the interpretation of a foul to the ref, or do you think it's good to let the ref interpret foul to keep, like we say, the safety, the fairness, or the fluidity of the game? Can we manage to put this on a rule set, or think it's bullshit?
Okay, so I'm not sure I'm not understanding the question, but let me just clarify. Let me just rephrase what you're saying and confirm if I'm understanding correctly. So what you're saying is that we have fouls that are very clearly stated that they should be one type of foul, one type of penalty, and another type of penalty, whereas there's we should have more of a spectrum of fouls. Is that what you're asking me, or?
Yes, this is the question. Yes.
Okay, so in that sense, there's certain actions that do lead to direct a penalty, right? There's certain infractions that call for certain actions as punishment, let's say. But that has a historical context, and so for the crease, it's something that maybe it might be outdated. It might need an update. There's certain things that are included very specifically because of the context, of the historical context that they had. However, I myself think that that's why we separated the infraction section from the penalty section. And we define when should a minor penalty should be called, when a major and player misconduct and all of that. We separated. Yeah, there should be definitely a range, right? And that's something as a ref that needs to be addressed. Yeah, maybe it might be for the next rule set. We might need at some point to scrap everything and write it again and rethink how we approach the writing of the rules. I know that the text is very dense in the rule set. But yeah, I mean, it's not written, but yeah, it's definitely, I think it's the right approach. Yeah, 100%. As a ref, everything should be within a range, right? It's not the same a very slow moving man on the wheel that doesn't necessarily create anything in the action than something that is full speed and ends up in a bad crash, right? Whereas the action is the same, but the punishment shouldn't be the same, right? So yeah, no, of course, at some point we're gonna have to revise the rule set and rewrite a lot of the sections. Yeah. But that's not something that we're probably gonna do in one phrase, right?
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is a two-part question. I've noticed in my own style that I really struggle to mobilize the minor penalty. I just don't use the minor penalty according 30 seconds for maybe flagrants or whatever kind of condition, a goal scoring opportunity that was clear, that was removed because of an infraction. I struggle sometimes to use these minor penalties or the major penalty I've never used. And I know that this is a problem in my arbitration and that I need to use these a little more affluently. The minor penalty, I think I've noticed it's a little more common now to catch a minor penalty even for things that aren't safety related. And I think that's good, but I'm looking for tips in order to, how do we use this minor penalty more regularly in the game or understand it better? And secondly, it was a very good question or a point brought up about advantage. Me, in my learning to be a referee, I kind of looked at it mathematically and thought to myself that any possible infraction could be led with an advantage call followed by a whistle blow determining the possession. Because I was very scared after having stolen advantage from a couple of players on a couple of occasions. I was very scared to steal advantage again from other players in the future. And so I kind of overreacted in giving advantage d'office, like right away, and then deciding if I need to blow the whistle. The question that comes up concretely is that if an infraction that merits a penalty is committed, but the ball has no clear possession immediately after the infraction, there is no possessor of the ball. So in theory, I don't know if I should call an advantage or if I should blow the whistle. We're wondering if, since the ball has no clear possession, there is technically no clear advantage after that penalty. And even though maybe the next closest player is the player of the team that was at fault, that got fouled, and they can pick up the ball and go score perhaps, that advantage, maybe should we not be calling that advantage if possession isn't clear? Maybe the ball is trapped underneath the players that are now down because of the toppling infraction. Do I wait for them to clear out and see who gets the ball before I decide if we allow advantage to play on? Or should I be blowing the whistle because no clear possession can be decided and therefore no advantage could possibly exist?
Okay, so this is two parts, right?
Yes.
The first part, not calling minor or major penalties. Yeah, there's still a big taboo. That's why the major penalties we made them, we changed them back from 2 minutes, which nobody was getting 2 minutes ever, to 1 minute, because that way it's a little bit easier. You have to be comfortable with the rule set, and you have to call them. Not necessarily, not calling 30 seconds and not calling 1 minute doesn't necessarily make you a bad ref. A little bit, yeah, but if you can still manage control of that game, that would be acceptable. What I mean by that is sometimes players, if you don't call the proper the proper sanction, they will retaliate, and the escalation of violence would start, and then you start losing control of your match. And so in that sense, that would be bad reffing. However, there are certain calls that are not necessarily clear-cut. And so in that situation, you're not calling 30 seconds and not calling 1 minute penalties. If it doesn't really affect the gameplay, that's all that matters, right? If that match still plays and doesn't necessarily affect the score, it doesn't necessarily affect how players are behaving, then I would be fine with people not doing that, right? Being a little bit less severe. Like I say, you have to be comfortable with what you call, but you have to control the game, and your whole responsibility is to manage that competitiveness, right? You don't care who wins, but they have to win fairly, and you have to make sure that they win fairly. That's why you're reffing. And so, if you can manage that without making, if there's a big foul and you're not calling the proper penalty, you're just giving ball turnovers, and that doesn't affect the fairness of the game, fine. That's okay. That's not usually how it happens. You know, it would be a rare occasion, or it would be rare that players don't start, you know, reffing themselves or like making the other team play. That would be very rare, but that does happen. It could happen theoretically, and so I'd be fine with that. Also, be confident. Do it. A lot of times, many times, I've seen it. People getting 1 minute because it's their fourth foul or whatever, and they still score. They can still play. You know, it's still a 3. It's not a guaranteed goal. It's not the end of the world. I know players that get very dramatic. I know I have a good friend of mine that every time I've called 30 seconds on them or 1 minute, he just tells me, "You're making me lose." No, I'm not making you lose. It's a response to an action. That's it. Don't take it personal. Move on, right? And so, as for the second part, yeah, that's a very tricky situation. It's very interesting for the advantage. I think it would be, players are very entitled when you miss an advantage. They think that it's like the greatest opportunity that they're gonna have, and so missing an advantage, calling a foul instead of giving them advantage, it's annoying, but it's not right, because the advantage only exists in the context of an action that could potentially lead to a goal, for that action to finish. And so you're making the mistake of not calling the advantage. It's annoying, but it's not the end of the world. Like I said, mistakes happen, you know, move on, right? About a ball that is divided. Again, if there's no action to finish, then there's no advantage. So you can totally blow the whistle. The ball went to the other side of the court. They have to go all the way there and get it. And then you can call the advantage. You didn't call the advantage. It could have been. No, there was no action to call. And so if you consider that that ball was nobody's, that they couldn't get it on time, that there was no action to complete, you can blow the whistle. And that would be totally acceptable, right? It's not one answer, because the situations are very complex, and so you have to read them and you have to assess them. If that was your take on the game as a ref, 100%, yeah, totally right. However, you might get some complaining, but that's always gonna happen. Anything else?
I think that's it, guys. We're about to go to lunch, Alejandro. Do you want to join us?
Yeah, sure.
Thank
you.
Thank
Alright, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes the classes. Thank you, instructors. We're gonna start matches at 2:30 sharp. This is gonna be plenty of time for the matches, but it only gives us 1 hour for lunch. I know the French like to hang out, but we'll have an hour for lunch, and I'm sure they're working on it right now, waiting on us. Thanks again.